Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to AMD Presents the Skyesports SEA Championship VCT Off Season official event powered by Ampverse. My name is Crips, and with me is CA. We're going to be your casters for the day. And today, it's a pretty important day. Some of the teams that have worked really hard over the past few weeks will now determine whether or not they are making it to the next stage of the qualifiers.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to see two teams are gonna see face off today, fight for their tournament lives on the line, but with a huge reward on the other side to boot. To get the win today means you get yourself into that final spot, and I think that is especially exciting for both of them. And we're gonna have to see how they're able to move forward and find the right groove to be able to make it happen.
Yes, without further ado, let's take a look at the schedule for today. We'll also take a look at the brackets to tell you what the journey of these teams have been like. So, without further ado, let's have that on the screen. It's been a pretty wild ride so far, CA. The brackets, they will tell you exactly what we have been up to. Some of the best teams of the previous stage of the tournament, well, the bleed those obviously those teams were bleed esports and south built, but none of them seem to be having a good time. In fact, bleed esports struggled yesterday quite a lot, and even though they are in the lower bracket, they did win after all, and hence bleed esports now find themselves in the lower bracket run. Meanwhile, made in Thailand yesterday had a jolly good time. They defeated their opponents, sent them packing to the lower brackets, and now Bleed Esports will be facing them.
Yeah, and made in Thailand in a great run of form, like you're mentioning. And we've got the rematch today of the Group a match that Bleed has won in the past, so we'll be comfortable being able to pull it off now. But we'll see. Maybe Southfield has the data to be able to exact that revenge. But let's have a look moving forward at the rosters and what kind of maps we're going to be able to get, Clips. But I have to ask you, right, given the history that these two teams have in this particular tournament, of course, do you think either teams has some sort of counter strategy prepped up, some sort of specific plan to target their opposition?
I kind of think that the counters will revolve around choosing a map of their preference. Okay, so when it comes to preferences, right? Ascent, I think, is not going to be a choice for either of these teams because it's too neutral of a map. Haven, both the teams are pretty good on it, but what else? You still have two more maps for the taking. So I think the counters will revolve around those. It's going to boil down to getting a decent map which you are comfortable with, and the other team isn't all that comfortable on. But let's take a look at the rosters as well, because a lot of this comes down to players. For a team like Southwell Esports, Aziz and Papi Chulo, these two, in my opinion, are the most important players. Aziz, obviously, because he's the star duelist, he's supposed to create the space, and Papi Chulo usually is the initiator who sets him up. But over the course of the last week, everybody on this team, including Flippy, Ja, and Pro, have also stepped up. Flippy has been super consistent with his controller. Sometimes he's able to lurk as well. Sometimes he plays with the team. So no matter what you ask him to do, this guy can fill in. Ja, on the other hand, has had some role changes along with Pro. Pro is also supposed to be on paper that information finding initiator, but yesterday we saw how he and Papichulo switched up roles between the initiators. One was a setup guy, the other one was the info guy. So that way Southbuild keep on changing their responsibilities. We'll see who picks up what role today.
Yeah, exactly. And for Bleed, Darion, JH, Juicy, Crazy Guy, and Scary finishing up the roster. You can see they've got a ton of experience in there, combined with the young might in terms of firepower with players like Juicy. And that's what I want to see. What kind of setup do we see from Bleed Esports today? Where do they go back to something simple? Do they continue on that double duelist? Because the question comes back to the fact that Southwell know what to expect against Bleed. Given their history, though, I think Bleed has made one thing clear for sure. They don't really care about what kind of preparation their opposition brings against them. They don't care how their opposition sort of play specifically. They're going to stick to their comfort and look to play their game from their approach.
Exactly. And maintaining your own approach is going to be super important, right? You would want to enforce your own plan rather than adapt to your opponent's plan. You would much rather have your opponent adapt to your plan than you do the other way around.
Mhm.
So, if that is the case here, then Bleed Esports need to enforce plan A. Sure, in case things go wrong, they have the ability to think on the fly. Yesterday, we saw how Crazy Guy and Darion basically started to flank around their opponents, even though they are not generally people who go for flanks. They would sometimes come in late and help their team, which is what is expected of them, but they were also soloing certain parts of the map yesterday simply because the game demanded it.
Absolutely. And with regards to that, let's have a look at the team head-to-head stats for these particular teams. I think, given the again history that we've seen from them, it's really crucial to see where these particular teams have potential vulnerabilities. You can see for Bleed, Icebox is the most picked map, while Haven for Southbuilt Esports. Though I do think Bleed just as comfortable on either one of them. And you can, in terms of win percentage, you can see why we're considering Bleed a somewhat favorite in this matchup. But that is that crucial factor, which I think only has recently changed. Cribs, the stats I see for attack win percentage and defense win percentage. Because when you normally think of Lead, you think of their strong defense. But after the severe loss against Made in Thailand, I think those stats were somewhat skewed.
But Made in Thailand, of course, is the kind of team that will group up together and hit you with brute force.
Yeah.
And somehow these teams were not ready for them. One would have expected that a team like Bleed, who has the players capable to go, play solo and make those plays. Southbuilt also a similar team who has the potential to split up and crunch their opponents. Both of them fell victim to Made in Thailand's playstyle, which was more along the lines of stick together and trade. It was a little more boring style of Valorant where you just stick together and throw bodies one after the other rather than go for those solo hero plays. It doesn't That kind of game doesn't give you all those cool highlight clips, but they both fell victim to that play style. So the question over here is, can Bleed and Southbuilt Esports pick up a page out of Myth's book, or will they stick to their own?
Exactly, and I think at this point for either of these teams, it's just about getting off to a strong start and making sure their strong players are able to pull it off. Talking about those strong players, let's have a look at their head-to-head stats and see how they stack up against each other. Now, knowing these teams, like we were expecting, it is those primary chamber players coming into focus, Ja and Darion. You can see Ja with slightly better stats. I think it's a lot to do with the fact that he has played that chamber a lot more, and it shows in his gameplay with his ability to continuously take those aggressive fights on chamber, especially on the headhunter. I think Ja's proficiency on that particular ability, the headhunter, is going to be a crucial one to witness, because if he's able to find the same level of value as he has been in the past with that headhunter, then I think Bleed's gonna have to really duck their heads and keep them down.
One also has to notice the number of MVP titles that Ja has to his
Oh
name.
yeah.
Four of them, and Darion has not a single one. And that's partially because Crazy Guy has been popping off for Team Bleed. So even though Chambers are supposed to be the tip of the spear, Crazy Guy is usually the one who comes in to save the day.
Yeah, and I think at this point, Darion's just going to be saying, hey, that's not fair about the MVPs, though. I've got Juicy in my team. They haven't got Juicy in their team. He steals away the MVP every single time. But I 100% agree. I think Bleed as a whole will be a team that we're gonna have to look out for to see pop-up performances for. But when you look at South Bill, they've got a much more refined structure where there are certain players expected to pop off almost, and they have the support infrastructure in the rest of their team to be able to enable that pop off. So clearly defined roles, I think, for South Built might be helping them go move forward. But for Bleed, it's that factor that you have the firepower in every single player. Right? We've seen even their most supportive player in JH pop the heck off in several rounds. Their IGL in Crazy Guy, Scary the controller finding lurk after lurk. All of these players, even though they are supposed to be supportive players, we've seen rounds where they've just completely taken over and single-handedly got Bleed that round. And that's what I think clearly defines the difference between these two teams.
Exactly. So that individual pop-off potential does exist on every player of Bleed. For Southbuilt Esports, those pop-off players are limited to Ja and Aziz. Yes, sometimes Papi Chulo goes in with those amazing flanks, and that is a moment where his enemies just fall to their knees. But that doesn't happen all the time. We saw that a couple of times against a team like Myth. but Papi Chulo is the primary initiator for that team. And when I say initiator, he is comfortable with both the information finding initiators as well as the setup initiators like Breach.
Yeah, and in terms of agent pick rates, you can see that priority that Southbuild give to Ja. He's picked up that chamber, as far as I know, in every single map. He is that perma chamber player, continuously finding value on it. Whereas Bleed, on the other hand, is slightly different on maps like Haven, for example, where they're running the double duelist. They do have
Yeah.
Darion on the jet to allow Juicy to pick up the Reina, but uh, if Darion is not playing the jet, that's where he ends up defaulting back to the chamber. So I'm excited to see our map veto eventually, see that what Darion is going to be playing and where these teams want to take us, because we have seen almost every single map from these particular teams, though there are a few more surprises left in the bag. I wonder if either of these teams tries to pull out a surprise or sticks to what they have known about each other.
One must also consider that Bleed are a team that continuously flirts with the idea of having a Reina on their team as well. So that double duelist gives Bleed a lot of potential to pick up the pace whenever it's required. That speedy potential that Bleed have, it's something that you need to be very careful about. Let's hop into the map, Peter, ladies and gentlemen.
Sure.
Let's see where these teams are going to be facing each other. We've already established that Icebox and Haven are strong maps for each of these teams, and South Build, they start off in a very good fashion on Haven. But that being said, it's not like Bleed are any less potent on Haven. I think Haven would be a neutral ground for both these teams, even though it's been picked up by South Build.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has to tell us that Southbuilt have a particular plan going into this matchup of Haven, because one thing is for certain, we know the lineup that Bleed is going to be looking to run. That double duelist lineup, like you mentioned, with Juicy on the arena. And I think this effectively ensures that if Southbuilt don't have a plan, Bleed will be able to overwhelm them all the way through. Now, this is especially interesting for me because the last time we did see these teams play together in the group stage, it was on that map of Icebox where Bleed were able to get a 13-7 victory. Given the fact that we've got Icebox in our third map, Bleed will be, I think, being extremely comfortable as long as they can secure one of Haven or Ascent, which is their map choice. So I think Bleed definitely coming off with the better veto, unless Southbuilt have that plan in mind, not just for Haven, but also for Icebox, where they have lost out before. So we'll have to see what kind of planning and prep the Southbuilt support staff have been able to execute in the last few days, because they're definitely going to need it with their tournament lives on the line.
Yeah, but with Icebox being the map number three, I'm kind of concerned about Ascent over here because Ascent is far more neutral than Haven as well.
Yeah.
So that really doesn't give you any stability. Because Bleed have picked up Ascent over some other maps like maybe Bind or maybe like Fracture. I'm starting to think that these guys are also trying to take a page out of Myth's book, like throwing in bodies and trading out well rather than just relying too much on utility. But I guess we'll discuss about Ascent later. Let's jump into Haven, ladies and gentlemen. The agent selection is ready. Let's see whether we get to see a double duelist from Bleed once again, or will they change things up?
Nope. It's going to be that double duelist once again for Bleed Esports. Darion on the Jet, Juicy on the Reina, JH on the Breach, Crazy Guy on the Sova, and Scary finishes it off with the Astra. A similar lineup for South Built, of course, with the exceptions being Ja continues on his favored chamber while Aziz picks up that race. So we'll have to see how Bleed is able to navigate this particular matchup, because we've seen how damn comfortable Ja is on this particular map on the chamber, where through C long he's able to push up with that headhunter in the pistol, take aggressive fights. Through A long he's able to set up his operator and just deny entry altogether for the teams and find value not just for the first kill but in anchoring down the site as a whole. So Ja can become a menace if you really let him get his uh, groove going on, and if you let him get into his comfort spot, find his mojo, you're gonna be in a vat of trouble. So I'm expecting to see Bleed really pick up the pace early on and find a way to make Jaw uncomfortable, maybe even deny him the operator by destroying his economy for the first 3 to 4 rounds, because that can be that healthy cushion they need going into the second half.
So there's some similarities in between these lineups. Obviously, the Breach, Sova, and Astra has been picked up by either side. So a double initiator coming out from both these teams. Astra will be the primary controller. The clear difference over here is that Ja is the only get out of jail character that South Built have. Meanwhile, Bleed have Darion and Juicy, who both have the ability to get out of trouble. Of course, Juicy's getting out of trouble relies on him getting a frag in the first place. But Aziz is the only X factor over here. This guy can move like nobody else, and that paint shell and showstopper, it can be so devastating. It can also be very disruptive more than devastating, because disruption is super important, as we've noticed in some of these Haven games. A lot of teams will prefer to attack you the moment you tap the spike or the moment you try to plant it. The moment they hear that beep, that's when they build up that's when they build up everything and just rush you down, because always there's going to be someone or the other in your team who's vulnerable in that moment.
Absolutely. It's almost like the moment they hear the beep, they go meep meep, and they go extremely fast on the retake. And I totally get that. I think the fast retake, especially against teams who are proficient on the post plants with their crossfires, is absolutely crucial. But hey, it's a lot of theory for either of these teams to cover. It's all about the execution at the end of the day. Whatever prep you might have had, whatever ideas, reads your IGL may propose, if the execution falls short, then it's all absolutely, utterly useless. And we'll have to see who is able to stay on top with in terms of that execution, because with the attacking side for Bleed Esports and South Built on the defense, I think both of these teams starting off on their comfort, as we noticed stat wise. It's Bleed going down a long, but already getting shut down by Papichulo and Aziz. South Built off to a tremendous start.
Oh, this is going to be super fast. He'd already losing two players. Not the start that they were expecting. But they're still keen on staying towards the A side. It's not like they're falling back and trying to execute some other part of the map.
Last player standing.
Gets one, but that's all she wrote for him. Crazy guy now left to his devices. All by his lonesome. Recovers the spike and somehow gets the kill on Papi as well. Down to 32 HP. But he's built up enough space for himself. At this point, Southwell don't know if he's still heading towards the A side or exploring other avenues. And luckily for Crazy Guy, he has plenty of time to work with.
And you can see Southwell clearly have done their homework. We've seen this fast A presence from Bleed time and time again. They use that Lear in fault line to clear off long, but there's that gap when they're pushing towards the long entries to site, and from where they enter into long, where they are vulnerable to peaks.
30
and that's
seconds
the
left.
exact moment both Papichulo and Aziz punish them and bring them down. Still, a couple of trades pulled back puts Crazy Guy in a 1v2 situation where he could look to isolate the deaths, but the silencer on his ghost spotted out. Just should know that he's in this B site, but it doesn't seem like it with the
10 seconds left.
Astra not moving.
Spike
Finally, they will now, and Ja will find an easy kill, but that's after the plant taken down. I wonder if he didn't notice the ghost. Maybe that was just us.
They didn't actually.
Yeah,
see
I mean, of course, we have the privilege of the X-ray, but I thought that Battle of the Ghost was visible.
Yes.
Regardless, whether he spots him or not, just saves the day in the end. So all is well that ends well. But that could have gone south.
Most definitely
Crazy-
could have.
Yeah, I mean, Crazy Guy never had the HP to work with, but like we said, Crazy Guy is almost always that person stuck in the clutch situation. And more often than not, he will clutch things out.
No, but look at their scripts. With that plant going down, that matter of seconds could actually make a huge difference. The force buy now coming through for Bleed Esports. They're taking the fight directly to South Build, and this round is going to be a huge one in terms of economy. Both of these teams need the win to ensure that they are able to move on in a fluid manner throughout the half. South Built on one half to ensure that they're able to get Ja his hands on an operator ASAP, but Bleed on the other hand to ensure they don't take a several round lead. Now walking into a long with the drone coming in his shot, trying to overwhelm South Built, and that's exactly what happens. Papichulo stunned out, gets taken down. Darion with the first blood, and so far Bleed making their first by work, but they haven't checked the Z's.
Oh, and that could have been a disaster. At least they take down Aziz before it's too late. It's always this A-shot position that is a trouble for most of the attacking teams, not just Bleed. A lot of times, most defensive teams will just have one player stationed over there trying to buy time, crunch them in later on. But for now, Bleed have cleared out the side, taken control, and now the retake begins. The fault line dodged by Flippy, but he can't escape the gravity well and cannot escape Darion's crosshair.
Just like that. That plant, that missing of the gun barrel might have made all the difference, because without the plant there is no force buy, and without this force buy there is no momentum
One
behind.
enemy
Ja
remaining.
moving in with the headhunter finds value yet again, but that's all she wrote for South Build. It's Bleed with the clutch. Bro, you gotta save your Spectre, man. Decides not to, and surprisingly so, the really weird there, I think, because the credit penalty for saving on a losing round is 1,000 credits. The Spectre is worth 1,600, and since you know your team is going to be doing an eco after saving the anti-eco, you got to save that Spectre.
Well, maybe math is a stronger suit for you
One
than it
enemy
is for them.
remaining.
But the decision to save or not won't matter, because even if he did, it would have been one Spectre along with a bunch of other sheriffs and cheaper pistols.
Yeah.
Sure, the Spectre can make a difference, but up against two Vandals, I think not. So it's not as big of a deal as we think it is. They will have plenty of chances to recover. But Bleed, let's address that. They took way too many economic risks and it pays off for them. So kudos.
Exactly, Bleed with that force buy. Finding the value and able to pick up the round. They'll continue their presence down this A long area, using the fall line to clear it out, and now the drone coming out for shot. Rinse and repeat is what Bleed's methodology. Okay. Just had a bit of a poor fuck. Okay.
Headshot.
Because it seems like SBE will have the same. Bleed just take the fights to them and are able to shut them down.
One enemy
Like you
remaining.
clearly mentioned as
Oh
well,
my
Chris,
God.
is those Vandals coming into play. SBE stand no chance.
Well, Darion has already farmed up his Blade Storm. That was way too fast from Bleed. 3 rounds in the game so far, and all Bleed have done is go towards the A side time and time again. Sure, there were no weapons available on South Build this time, but there were 4 people ready to guard the side. And what does Darion do to respond to that? Farms up his second dash, goes in
remaining.
beyond the aftershock. Where Papichulo thought nobody would be brave enough to push that aftershock. He was left vulnerable, and Darion just farming flags like it's just another Saturday.
I have to wonder, was Darion watching our pre-match stream? Is he angry about that head-to-head player stats? Like, hey, why do I have 0 MVPs? We've got to change that this series, boys.
And definitely he's taking steps to change that. But Aziz wants to take matter into his own hands. This is the different approach coming out from South Build Esports. Usually they place 3 or 4 people as a stack on the side to stop Bleed Esports from coming through. But this time Aziz is the lone defender over here. He was posted up close towards the mouth of A lobby, but now he's decided to fall back towards the A side instead. And while the rest of Bleed Esports make a move towards A, Scary has already reached the tip of B site. Maybe he can find the timing.
You can see Bleed cautious in their approach, expecting a multi-man presence on the A side, because rarely will a player push out A long solo. But in that time, the lurk from Scary shut down. Pro expecting it, finds that duel and is able to take him out. And now without the Astra, the controller, no smokes to execute onto site. They're gonna have to rely purely on their double duelists to create space. But it's
Spike
easier said
down
than
A.
done with that window coming into
I
play.
have this
No
fight.
smokes is a
30
big
seconds
disaster
left.
for Bleed in this round, and I'm not sure how they can crawl their way out.
And it's not just the smokes that are missing. They have no trademarks, nothing as such, so that they can be aware about a potential backstab coming in. Keep in mind that the other chamber is already on its way, so
enemy
they are
remaining.
boxed in with very little
Spike
time
down
left.
A.
Crazy
One
guy
enemy
has to not
remaining.
only recover the spike, but also plant it while being aware about where his nemesis is, who's all his way
Spike planted.
from a long. Rotation's inbound already, and Ja is there to save the day.
Has the right read though, realizes that without the chamber coming through on the trade for the Astra from CT or window, he has to be on the flank. Unfortunately, he's already managed to sneak up, and before Crazy Guy can even get his hands on his Vandal, Ja shuts him down. Just like that, a 2-2 score line is achieved for South Built Esports as the equalizer. But in terms of economy, their economy in tatters, because that was their buy round. They lost 4 weapons, whereas for Bleed, it was merely a bonus. Especially with now Darion looking to opt in for the Blade Storm. Bleed's economy looking particularly great, and in a position where they can continue to buy even if they lose the next 2 rounds. So Southwell, they need this round win, but more importantly, they need a convincing one to start build up their economy and get that operator for job, because that's what is crucial to be missing all so far.
My god, Southfield really want to box them in. Look at the push coming out from Long. Both Shah and the Asha have pushed out of Long already. And at this point, Bleed Esports, they need to barge in. Oh, there's a counter push coming in from a shot as well. Papi Chula gets that final frag. Both the Rolling Thunders invested. It's pandemonium and chaos all over the place, but the spike is yet to make its way across. And if it does, it will be great. But Darion, the only person who could have made a difference, now dies. Juicy picks up a double, but is he a bigger gun to respond with this one and throws Juicy to smithereens. Pro comes in with the final one. South built Esports, they have Bleed cornered like rats. And so far, Bleed's approach of going for A every single round, it sure looked interesting at the start, but now South built Esports have come up with a counter for it, and Bleed need to change things up.
Unfortunately, I feel like a broken record saying that about Bleed after watching them play against Made in Thailand, right? You know they need to change things up. At least we feel they need to change things up, but Bleed's the kind of team that will look to switch up their style of taking the A side, but will not look to switch up the side. They smoke off A long this time, prioritize their presence towards A shot, and use the recon to hunt down the players that are heavily stacked there. But as he's able to back up his boom bot buying him time, he finds the trade for his fallen comrade. Just like that, Southwind able to equalize the scoreline. Now I bought enough time for the backup to come through. A 3-man stack on this A side. This will surely force Bleed away. Or will it?
Will it? Exactly, will it?
We're on the same page, guys.
So many times in the past, Bleed Esports have figured out that Southbuilt have a stack and decided to go for the push regardless. This time they're being silent. They've cut off sound. They are making Southbuilt doubt themselves. Have Bleed fallen back? Have they learned their lesson? Or is it back to ground one? It seems like Southbuilt have made the correct decision to hold their ground. Aziz deliberately reveals himself and then repositions. Ja holding with the 2-4. Now this could be a major deterrent. There's already one player to his left. If Juicy peaks along with the breach, it would be wonderful, but he alone is enough. Can he strike again? Papi Chulo doesn't want to challenge this one. 30 seconds left, and there's enough time for Bleed Esports to go in and plant, but not if they continue to loiter around.
The queen is here to play, baby. Shuts down that tour de force, and here's the Empress leading the charge as Aziz back to his position down at the graffiti spot. Finds the double and puts Bleed in an impossible spot, but with the double swing coming through, Scary and Crazy Guy convert it nevertheless. Aziz's heroics in Wayne is a Bleed who pick up the round.
How can Bleed be so stubborn, yet so successful on this A-side attack? Haven is a map of 3 sides, and we've only seen Bleed do the same thing again and again. Of course, they've changed approach in terms of when they use the utility, sometimes by not using it at all. Juicy like that, goes around dry peak, definitely going to give some people heart attacks. But Bleed don't even require to plant the spike this time around. They just simply win the duels, and that is about it. Pro with the early Hunter's Fury doesn't get much done, but hey, at least he drove Bleed away from the A site. Aziz looking to recapture this now available map control has been put down.
One round where Bleed change it up, Southville decide to commit an aggressive push with the Hunter's Fury, and now with Pro spotted out on the drone, it's a matter of time before Bleed open up the floodgates and get into sight. Doing exactly that, JH. Gonna be able to get the plant as Southbuilt. They are in a dire spot. Their economy in tattoos. This is the last round where they could have afforded the buy, and this doesn't look like it's going anywhere. With Scary getting the backup from Crazy Guy to hold on to the flank. The gravity well pulling Southbuilt to their Rens. Scary says bye-bye. And just like that, that is the end of Southbuilt's lead.
I wonder if JH deliberately made that sound cue to attract Ja towards his direction, and Juicy got the trade on him. Subtle mind games, but Bleed Esports, it looked like it would be a round that's somewhat different from the rest. They started off by going towards grass, and they made a lot of noise towards mid, but the moment Aziz got picked off towards A-long, Bleed were back to their old ways.
Exactly, and I think at this point, for the side of Southbuilt Esports, this timeout very much necessary, Crips, and the idea to discuss in this timeout, where are we going wrong with trying to understand Bleed? The moment they try to counter that A push is that exact moment where Bleed actually back off and don't go for it. And oh, look at this. There's actually Godspeed in the coach slot today and not Legia. I'm excited to see if maybe the timeout trends that we have seen do end up changing and how Bleed look to adapt, because Godspeed will have a word with South Built as well. South Built, on the other hand, no coach, is just pro giving out certain directions. And I think the idea here has to be, hey, let's take A long control, let's have them re-aggress, because usually you're scared of re-aggression from a Breach Sky where they can flash you out in multiple angles, but against a Breach solo, Arena even to come through, it's much easier to play on the anti-flash crossfires.
With that utility in mind, South built, how can they come up with a counter for this one? Southall have gone back to a default, and rightly so, because Bleed are no longer aggressing towards A, at least not for now. They show presence towards Garage. Once again, multiple people being spotted. The recon rod also gives Pro the affirmation that he so desperately needed. But what do Bleed do now? Slowly and steadily heading towards the C long region, where only Flippy lies in wait. And Flippy also doesn't have any resources to gather information except by jump spotting himself. And he sees his death flash before his eyes. He sees multiple people. Nebula placed instantly, hoping to buy some time as Bleed now invades the site. He's looking to repel the invaders. But Ja comes in from the smoke out of Garage, gets 2 kills. This was more than what was expected off of him. JH does get the double, of course, but Bleed, at least it's down to a 3v3, so Southfield have some chance. As he's once again taken out of the smoke. Crazy guys ready for this one. And the Rolling Thunder committed. This should be the finalization of Bleed's round.
Feel like there's a typical Godspeed round. Creates an early presence towards one area just to walk down C, and the minute they get contact, they go all ham. Blazing into sight, not giving South Built a moment to respond. Bleed now in a 3v1 with Pro. Just with the Sheriff on his hands, does manage to get one. Takes down Scary Pro with just 5 HP. All he's got is a Drain. Will have to sacrifice himself to the spike, and that will be Bleed continuing their lead moving forward. And they need that, because once again, you have to remember the statistical facts that we saw in display in our pre-match lobby. Bleed's attack win percentage much greater than their defense win percentage, where their attack win percentage was over 60%, their defense win percentage was just under 40%. So they need that healthy cushion moving forward into the next round, especially when they're playing a lineup without a sentinel.
Exactly. When they are playing a lineup without a sentinel, they have to rely on Darion and Juicy to make aggressive plays on that defensive side as well to box South Built in. Because so far, South Built have been pretty successful in boxing Bleed in. And I kind of wonder if Bleed deliberately were hitting A again and again and again just to build up that reputation of themselves in South Build's mind. Because keep in mind, Southbuilt once again had gone for an A stack up until now. Now the Bleed members will be forwarded out towards B. The rotations come through towards A-Link, and Papi Chula gets a freebie through the smoke. Oh, the fault line is perfect. Papi gets one again. Spike recovered by Bleed, but will they be able to plant? Flippy's holding the anti-cross, and he's forced to fall back. No problem. At least with this one, Southbuilt have all the information they need. When with the man advantage, even after losing Ja, Southbuilt will be completely fine.
A beautiful duel there from Scary. Through the boxes, was able to chunk Ja out heavily. And as soon as he heard Ja backing off, he went on the hunt himself. Found that chamber and shut down the operator, forcing these rotations from both Pro and Papichulo to be able to guard onto this A site. But like you rightly mentioned, that early plan from Bleed to condition that A site entirely and make Southville continuously terrified of what might happen is now giving them a free C site. They walk into the C site, they're going to be able to get the plant and potentially a huge look from Crazy Guy.
And Darion is all the way into its CT. Instead of going for the plant right away, Bleed decided to extend a little further, get a kill before they commit, and it works out. Crazy Guy once again left on the look. Here's Pro top down, and Crazy Guy shuts down Pro before he even has a chance to realize what happened. Papi Chudo walking around loudly, giving away footsteps. His position's known, and Scary doesn't even need eyes to finish him off.
Exactly. 6-3 on board now. Once again, the buy round 1 for Bleed Esports does mean the Southbuilt are running out of steam. Remember, this is on the back of Southbuilt's timeout, no less. So no more options, at least in this half left for South Build to be able to try and recalibrate and deny Bleed. That conditioning working beautifully as South Build try to dedicate their resources towards A just for Bleed to shut them off. And now Bleed expecting them to think, hey, they haven't hit A for quite a few times this time. Maybe they'll back off, trying to go back to the A side. But South Build, they are adamant. They're maintaining a heavy presence here, and that recon gets a ton of value. So Ja knows, but can Ja find?
Yeah, the recon revealed like 3 people, and then the drone once again pinged up the jet. And after getting revealed on the A side, multiple people flood into the B side, where Juicy now lies in wait. Only Aziz is available over here for defense, but he has no chance of standing his ground. The Lear gets him. Juicy now extended towards the link, but Flo is trying to make his way inside. The only hope can come from Ja, and he's already picked off one coming in from bottom mid. Crazy Guy now looks to both look into multiple directions. At least A link is not going to be a problem. But Scary, what? Both of them caught with their pants off guard. At least Scary pulls his gun out in time.
South Built now in a 1v3. Papi Chulo left all alone. As a Rolling Thunder, but it seems quite wasteful to use it in that situation with just Sheriff in his hand. Doesn't bother a Crazy Guy it is to shut him down.
Yeah, Bleed Esports have so much real estate inside South Build's mind and on this map too. It's so simple for Bleed to just reveal themselves towards A and then make their way into any other part of the map. Because South Build are just simply reluctant to leave the A side, and when they finally do, it's a bit too late.
Exactly, and I think, while I appreciate the concept from South Build as to not leave the A side unguarded, it's better to use utility that isn't necessarily on A side, like the breach fault line from A link or the Astra Gravity Wells, rather than body presence towards that A side, and they do exactly that. They switch up their setup, bring Ja on the operator back into C side, and he finds that first pick. Now, acknowledging that they've got a plethora of ultimates to focus in on the retake, Ja rightfully backs off. But what they don't know is while Bleed have taken the C side, all of this is chaos. They're expecting the fast retake, and which is why they're going in for the quick rotate.
Yeah, but the drone spots out the 2 members of Bleed falling back. South Build are already on their way towards the A side, and now it's a race. Oh my god, Darion! Flyby onto Ja. That's gonna hurt.
Plant denied for now, but JH able to get back down under in time. Aziz comes through with a showstopper. No finds the exact hole he needs and is able to take one down. Pops a hole in another, and it's Pro to finish it off in a 7-4 as South Build. They needed that round, man. They used 2 crucial ultimates, the showstopper and the Rolling Thunder, and they rightfully converted. Bleed's fake goes in vain, and South Build able to recover.
Lovely recovery from South Build. It's not just the Rolling Thunder and the Showstopper that made an impact. It was also the fact that they were able to get there in time. That drone coming out from Pro, spotting the members of Bleed falling back, was wonderful, because Darion and Juicy were more than capable of just staying on the seaside and keeping the rotation stationed over there. Bleed, of course, they make their way inside, but the plant was denied, and that made things even harder. South Build hit Bleed before they even have a chance to get into a retake scenario. This time Bleed slowing things down to a crawl, exploring both avenues of the map simultaneously. Usually they stick together if they are trying to go for an A hit or even for a C hit for that matter. They stick together and then they split up, but this time they split right from the beginning. Darion holding an off angle in case Aziz or any other person from South Build decides to push up. Meanwhile, the remaining members poking and prodding towards C.
Look at this. Bleed playing with that information that they have in favor of them and trying to deny it to South Build, but South Build most definitely have an inkling, especially now with the trademark going down. Back up into the seaside, try to stack it to shut them down, but the stack is very much in vain as Bleed still force it through, find a 3k, and South Build are left wondering. We knew they were coming, we knew we had to stack it up, but we still couldn't do anything. What the hell?
Exactly. And this is a problem they faced on the A side before as well. Several times South Built had a triple stack present, yet Bleed were able to force their way inside.
Feeling
The
safe.
same happens on C this time. Now Aziz and Pro left with a
One
mammoth
enemy
task
remaining.
on their shoulders, one that they will not be able to fulfill. 8-4 lead in the hands of Bleed. And you were
Switching
right.
sides.
Their attack round win percentage is definitely higher, and they needed that comfortable cushion. Is 8-4 a comfortable enough cushion for you?
Almost definitely. Especially
Okay.
mathematically, right? Because if you expect Bleed to win, say, about 40% of their defensive rounds, that's about 2/5 of 12 rounds, which is just around 4 to 5 rounds. It's like 4.5 rounds or so, which is exactly what they need to win this matchup. So, literally, this is the perfect scoreline statistically for them to be able to pull off. But the one stat that we have willfully ignored throughout this is South Build being much better on the defense than they are on the attack. And that's the side they're going to now, Crips. So, it's looking a little scary for South Build, no lie. But we'll have to see. Maybe they can find the gaps that Bleed's defense has because of the lack of that sentinel.
Yes, but I think the lack of the chamber or any sentinel for that matter will be made up with the sheer aggression that Darion and Juicy can bring to the table. Keep in mind that Juicy was more than comfortable dry peeking chambers on two of their forces, so that should tell you how brave this guy is feeling today.
Jets ground. Last player standing.
I really think, given the fact that we haven't seen a single moment from Jaw across the entire defensive half where he was able to get an aggressive push in and find value with his headhunter or with his operator, tells you the tale about that first half. Bleed convincingly pushed South Built off their comfort, conditioned them to play according to their play style, and forced them into a situation where they were left scrambling, wondering, and reacting on instinct alone, which is where Bleed thrives. The intuition gameplay, the chaos in which Juicy and Darion able to take full advantage, now putting Bleed in a very comfortable spot. But Southville trying to answer with this B hit coming through. They will get the plant. Now Bleed in a 5v5 retake. Let's see what they can accomplish because they've got Juicy on the flank, Crips.
Josie on the flank is incoming, but the trademark and Flippy both marking his position. There's also Darion incoming from the same place. But as soon as this is broken, what's going to happen? Flippy turns around, but he doesn't get anything done in time. Juicy now starting to pop off. Here's the breach across the other side. Ja comes in from behind. Juicy sandwiched inside. His teammates need to move towards B. And while Juicy has already popped out of the window, Papi Chulo, he can't do much. He's supposed to look in both directions at the same time. What a wonderful flank from Juicy. And while they were all so busy dealing with Juicy and Darion's incoming backstab, the site was left defenseless. There was only one player towards the back of B side, towards Gong, and he found himself surrounded by an army of Bleed members who were just angry and ready to take him down.
Exactly.
The post-plant positions of South Built Esports towards the bottom of mid were supposed to basically guard the spike from being diffused. But
One
Juicy, my
enemy
god, what an absolute monster. He went on a tear.
And that river suits him perfectly. It's like the bells of death tolling the end of Southbuilt Esports is tong tong every single time Juicy finds that headshot.
Yeah. At this point, you sound like you're making the Undertaker theme.
I mean, Juicy definitely fits that vibe, right? He's the Undertaker rolling his eyes at Southbuilt Esports, wondering, can you just go next? Like, I want to go to the playoffs already. This is boring.
Well, Bleed certainly have a lot of exciting things coming up for them in the next week. Not just the playoffs, but several other tournaments and tours. Oh, a solo reconnaissance mission from Ja.
Oh,
and he
there we go.
strikes! Too late. JH finally shuts him down, but at this point, all the other members of Southwood are already inbound. Rotation's not available for JH. Yes, sure, the score will come through, but then Crazy Guy help. Oh my goodness, JH is on a roll. He's done more than enough, given Bleed the man advantage that they so desperately required, but Aziz takes it away just as easily. He just needs to buy time.
Last player
Darion is
standing.
coming from
One
behind, and
enemy
he'll be able to
remaining.
catch Pro off guard. Aziz now boxed inside the corner, down to a 1v1. Darion knows exactly where he is, but will Aziz give him the satisfaction? Will Aziz peek him at all? He just needs to buy some time. It's Darion versus the Sheriff versus the Bulldog, and Aziz comes through with a quad kill of his own. It was Juicy in the previous round who shut everything down with the quad kill, and this time Aziz returns the favor.
Aziz with the quadra coming up huge. Makes Bleed's economy go boom, and the confidence in that last 1v1 to white peak that C-long area, take that fight against the Bulldog with just the Sheriff shows up for Aziz. I have to say it was a risky decision. Against that Bulldog, more often than not, you're gonna fall prey, but Aziz clearly saying, man, I've hit one shots too many in this round. I know I got this, and he most certainly did. A thrifty meaning now South Build have brought back a huge boost of momentum in their favor, and they're going to look to build on it, marking Bleed's aggression. They find Darion and the first point.
This is such a deja vu. Flippy, this time once again getting Scary, who was hoping to play on the curvature of that smoke, hoping to surprise someone, but that's not gonna happen. Reset control firmly taken. Both the remaining members of Bleed coming in from a link. The smoke stands in their way. But even if they get past the smoke, even if they get a couple of kills, a 2v5 is just a bit too much of an ask. The max they can do is inflict some economy damage. But once again, see, now that we have some time to discuss it, it's a complete deja vu of the first half. Southport win pistol, Bleed win the next round to just negate all the momentum. The same happens over here. Southport, they lose the pistol, but then win the subsequent round. Both the teams doing each other dirty by taking away all the momentum that they gathered in the pistol.
The key fact over here is, Crips, that Bleed actually invested to try and do South Build dirty. South Build with just a couple of sheriffs and Jazz Headhunter finding that thrifty and now putting Bleed in a precarious spot where losing that thrifty has given South Build more than an opportunity to bring back this scoreline to a much more respectable scenario. Now Bleed, they've got the bye in this round, but look at South Build's economy. It is thriving. And at this point for Bleed Esports, not only is it crucial to win this round, but once again, that question of the operator that we've been discussing for Jaw throughout that first half comes back, but towards the side of Bleed on Darion. They need that operator ASAP because it functions as pseudo anchor effectively and helps them realize the missing potential that you get from that central. For Bleed, instead, are going to look to take the fight to South Build and deny this confidence and momentum. Can South Build punish them?
That's a big question. Could be a rhetorical one as well. Bleed showing a lot of presence towards the B side. Looking to go aggressive over here with both the extremities of the map left relatively unguarded. Scary puts down the smoke only to cross over to the other side as it dissipates. And he has some read. He's called for the rotation. The cavalry has arrived. It's a 4-man stack for Bleed on the side already. And Darion continues to strike. JH on the back of that counter utility is able to get one more kill, and Southbuild are being held at bay. Flippy is the only one who can respond in kind, but that accounts for nothing as Bleed have shut down Southbuild in the most gruesome of ways.
Crazy guy coming through on the flank as well, bro. He's got nowhere to go. 1v3 in this setup, but with Crazy guy slowing down, you can see the top-down setup from Bleed on site. JH on top of the Radiant Eye boxes while Darion takes contact, but bro is gonna just be able to recover
30
this fight
seconds left.
and potentially isolate a 1v1 against Crazy Guy. He's got enough time to run to site if he's able to find Crazy Guy, but is he expecting him? He most certainly is. Jiggles out the angle, finds the 1v1, and Pro suddenly builds up an insane chance to win this round. Got 10 seconds left on the clock, though he's got to run to site.
Exactly. He needs to run to the ace side as fast as his feet can carry him. He better have put on his running shoes because this is going to be down to the wire. Barely 4 seconds left. Can he get the plant? It's down to milliseconds. He gets it. Oh, he uses the opponent's cloud burst to go around the other side. He could have isolated JH, but JH is faster. This was way too close for comfort.
Oh, was that important?
Pro doing exactly that, man. Definitely going to be a moment where he reminds Crazy Guy that, hey, I can take it away if you give me enough time, and I think for future circumstances, it's likely we see Crazy Guy not committing to that fight, rather just jiggling. And making sure Pro doesn't have the opportunity in terms of time, even if he does in terms of fights. Still, The clutch coming through for Bleed, that's what matters at the end of the day. And it is that 10-6 on board for them with double digits taken online. And now crucial ultimates coming through as well. The Rolling Thunder available combined with the Empress Bleed gives Bleed an very easy opportunity to retake. For South Build, they have a similar idea. They want to hit the site nice and quick so they can play on the Hunter's Fury on the post.
Yeah, and this time they'd spare no stone unturned. They're going all the way into its garage with the drone checking out B. Spots nobody. Southport keeping their options open. They want to attack garage at the same time. In case something goes wrong, B should be an option. Aziz covers the distance. Crazy guy. He's tempted to go through the smoke, but he's gonna wait. Plant detected. Aftershock to deny that, and they delayed the plant for now. And this means the opportunity of Southbuild is going as it speaks. The smokes are about to dissipate. The Rolling Thunder pushes them back out of the site. Bleed have retaken control of the site before the plant even goes down, but Aziz, this was the man who went and checked, and he strikes twice. This is a disaster. Bleed, they successfully stop Southbuild from planting, but at what cost? They've lost most of their members.
And they've got another one to boot. Juicy caught at the tail end of that hit. Taken down by Flippy. Now Southbuild with a 4v1 advantage.
30
Crazy
seconds
guy
left.
will just elect to go for the save. It's too far away and with too little backup to be able to pull this off.
Clean and simple from Southbuild Esports. They were aware about all the ultimates available on Bleed Esports. They anticipated them as well. The moment the aftershock came through, Southbuild had absolutely no regrets letting go of the spike and falling back outside of the B site. They were more than comfortable letting it go. And that's partially because Aziz had already snuck in all the way inside. The Rolling Thunder never hit him. Aziz was unchecked. Nobody would have anticipated that somebody might still be towards backside, while Bleed could clearly hear the footsteps of Southbuild members trying to scramble away from B. They must have... Bleed weren't wrong to assume that all the members had exited the site. They would have never expected Aziz to still be there, and this is even worse for Crazy Guy. He goes down after the spike blows up. That means not only does he not carry forward the weapon, but also gets the economic penalty. Everything that could have gone wrong for Bleed has gone wrong.
Yeah, exactly. No weapon as well, safe too. It does mean that Bleed now gives Southbuild back that momentum, and like you rightly said, Southbuild with a deserved round, waiting out that Rolling Thunder, waiting out Bleed's fast retake, able to then go for the rotate, and Aziz comes up huge. Now this time, Southbuild holding on to their ultimates though. Not only have they continued with the Hunter's Fury from that last round, but they've got the Showstopper to boot along with the Cosmic Divide. So a fast hit definitely on the cards. But once again, Southbuild happy to play it slow in the first 20 to 30 seconds of the round, expecting Bleed to aggress, especially since this is the eco round for Bleed. But Bleed, instead of aggression, have chosen a stack, and the C side is where they're at.
Southbuild Esports need to tread carefully, measure every step along the way. Crazy Guy spotted out towards the bottom of a shot. But will that lead Southbuild to assume that Bleed have not stacked up the C side? They're still hitting it. It could be a trap. They don't know that so many people are present over here. Pro now looks to the other side and instantly gets responded to. Darion, good for one. Juicy recovers the weapon. And now things are starting to go south. With this Vandal in his hand, Juicy can pop the hell off. Doesn't want to face the showstopper. Dodges it, but goes straight into the crosses of Papi Chulo instead, who was well on his way from garage.
Dodges the rocket, but finds the thunder in the arms of the breach. That moment, I thought it was the typical moments before disaster picture, you know? Where Juicy gets a Vandal and his GGWP, where the duo comes in clutch of Aziz and Papi Chulo, ensures that he doesn't even get an opportunity to get a fight against them, and just like that, Southbuild will be able to make that 8 to 10, and again only using a singular ultimate in that showstopper, so they still have that Hunter's Fury, a crucial one to boot, because given Bleed's propensity to play on the retake in certain sites, the Hunter's Fury really could come in clutch in a particular round.
At least Bleed Esports have the weaponry now to respond. With both the sides having their Hunter's Fury available, this could be a crucial round. And Southbuild would be wise to play it slowly.
I was laughing because of that Ray's voice line where she like, Hunter, Hunter.
Hunter. Reese has a... Yeah, she does have a colorful personality.
Has some colorful fireworks as well.
Yeah. Let's see if he can bring any color into Southfield's life over here. Dash about to run out. He hasn't peeked on the back of it, but that's fine. As long as they figure out where the operator is, will avoid it like the plague.
Just like Southville will also avoid the color red like a plague. They don't want to bleed at the hands of Bleed themselves. Playing it very, very slow. Just hoping that Bleed will take a step too far, aggress a second too early, and they can make them pay. But no, instead they get the contact with Crazy Guy towards that A site. He's trying to delay as long as he can, and they do exactly that. Again, taking this B site, waiting out all this util, but not committing on the plant. And Southbuild now trying to use the Hunter's Fury to clear out the A-Link. That's when they will be able to get the spike safely down.
Yeah, but the moment you say spike safely down, another Hunter's Fury gets committed, and this time it might actually kill somebody, if not deal damage at the very least. JH is able to catch Habichulo as the smoke fades. Darion looking to make sure A is still guarded well, and he takes down Cha in the process of doing so. Flippy knocking on the doors of Garage. Southbuild have realized that B side is no longer a viable option. That's why they were exploring both Garage and A, and they've lost both those options.
One enemy
Crazy
remaining.
Guy, he's holding the perfect angle. Intercepts Ashish before he has a chance to make a move. Throws pinged, stunned, but at least able to get one before he bites the dust.
Absolutely. I think at this point, really, for the side of Southbuild Esports, they tried their hardest, right? They baited out the ultimates, they waited it out, and it really did come down to a game of chicken where Crazy Guy came out on top, buying enough time with the Hunter's Fury to allow JH to come through and find the kill. Started a cascade of dominoes, resulting in Bleed picking up the round. 11-8 on board, and now with the operator on Darion, Bleed have a read in mind. They're expecting a heavy A hit, and that's exactly what it is. With Aziz double satcheling it down. A side is JH to shut him down, and the IGL difference really comes online. Because look at this, while there was a 4-stack at A, they've got Darion with the operator pushing down into C, and Southbuild trying to take the C side might just find themselves at the butt end of a long gun. No!
But Darion, he missed his opportunity. Now the best that he can do is buy time and fall back towards C long while his teammates come in from CT. At least with this thing, he's ensured that Southbuild will have no decent post-plan positions. And Southbuild have only one move that they can use. That is go into Garage and hope that they can defend it from there. They've already got their two up placed in that location. Pro is holding down the doorway. Meanwhile, everyone else on Southbuild stays on the site. There's no major ultimates available on Bleed that can flush these players out. Darion taken care of. Now C-Long available for Southbuild if they want to take that area as a post-plant staging place. Cosmic Divide should make it a little easier for Bleed. At least make an entry, but Southbuild still defending it, playing along the edges of that massive purple wall. Of course, Bleed will punish them all.
Juicy shots are so clean, man. Absolutely clinical, this queen. 12-8 now picked up for Bleed Esports, and I have to applaud Darion in this round because I've seen many a player after missing that first shot give in to their itch and go in for the second, but rightfully looks and says his team's got a man advantage, doesn't need to do that, and backs up and plays it slow. Even though he goes down later into Garage, his job is done because Pro stuck in Garage, not able to back his system up, ensures that the man advantage for Bleed very much remains on the retake, and they use that to their fullest potential, get the trades in their favor, and now are on map point to secure the first map of the series, but most importantly, the map that Southbuild chose for themselves.
Yeah, and with Bleed winning out Haven, Ascent does seem a little more comfortable for them. Southbuild measuring every approach, taking every step cautiously. They don't want to walk into the operator, they need to nullify the position. Last time it was on C, sometimes it's on A, this time in sewers. They don't want to run into that trap, and that's why they're taking their sweet time, just waiting towards Glass. Flash comes through, Aziz clears out Garage. But what's the next step? Do they continue heading directly into C? Do they try to climb into window? Or do they, as they have done in the past, try to approach the B side? Oh, it seems like it's the latter.
I think the initial idea was actually to try and pull rotations, maybe go towards A, but with Jaw getting caught out by QC, they realized A is no longer an
Spike
option.
down,
They
mid.
default back to this B side, which Bleed have left intentionally empty, inviting them into a trap. And with the trap set, the Empress bounces and QC makes them pay. Finds a 3K, leaving Aziz on his lonesome to get hunted down by the Hunter to get Bleed the map point, the win in this map of Haven against South Built in their map of choice.
This is such a good read from Bleed Esports. The moment Southbill tried to knock on the doors of Garage, Bleed realized that this isn't indeed a garage hit, but rather a B site attempt. They have Juicy and Crazy Guy on C Link and A Link, respectively, both guarding each end. Whether there's nebulas in their way or dissipates, it doesn't really matter because they are more than comfortable peeking out of it and still winning their duels. It takes nerves of steel for a man like Juicy to just simply walk out of smokes, try to finish those duels off. And with Astra being one of the first casualties, they didn't even have many smokes to work with. Bleed Esports played South Built like a fiddle on their own map pick.
And a convincing 13-8 victory puts Bleed in an commanding position in this best of 3 series, looking to secure their spot in the final playoffs and potentially even get themselves into a situation where they can get another try at Made in Thailand, try to get that revenge for the devastating loss that they had inflicted. But still, I think that is still a little too far. They need to take down Southbuilt on one more map at the very least to secure this victory, because this is not over just yet. It is a BO3, and we have seen Bleed lose from 1-0 down up in the BO3. So definitely possible given the caliber of Southbuilt Esports. But the caveat is the fact that now Bleed go on to Ascent, and even if they lose that, onto an icebox where they feel extremely comfortable. So Bleed very much the favorites to finish this off.
Definitely. Let's take a look at some of the highlights over here because there were several of them.
Spike
Right off the
down,
bat,
A.
it's pretty obvious that Bleed Esports
10
were
seconds
hitting
left.
the A site again and again for like, what, 4-5 rounds back to back? Maybe even 6. And by doing so,
One enemy
for
remaining.
several rounds consecutively, they conditioned Southbuilt into believing that A is always going to be an option for Bleed Esports. That is why whenever Bleed started to move towards the other parts of the map later on in the game as well,
One
whether they go
enemy
towards C
remaining.
or B, Southbuilt were very reluctant to leave the A site unguarded. They always had some of the other players stationed over there, and that made it so much difficult for Bleed Esports to make rotations on time.
Yeah,
You want to
exactly. I
play?
think it all comes down to that initial conditioning we saw towards the defensive a half for Southbuilt Esports set up by Bleed, right? That continuous A side hit,
standing.
even though it resulted in a very close scoreline in the first half, snowballed in the later half. The value coming through in terms of the macro gameplay towards the latter end of the half, getting Bleed that 8-4 scoreline, because you can see, even though Bleed rarely went to that A side after the timeout, I think they went there once in a late rotate. Southbuilt were continuously terrified. They're like, what if they go A again? What if they go A again? And every single time that question, that little bit of hesitation on Southbuilt was able to get Bleed a free sight. So beautifully done in terms of that conditioning. And I can clearly see the work of that support staff to be able to set that up.
Definitely. They were so deep inside the minds of their opponents.
30 seconds
Bleed
left.
Esports basically channeled Southbuilt Esports into slowing down the rotations in the first half, and then in the second, whenever Southbuilt were looking to enter Garage and then fall back towards the B side, yeah, Bleed saw that coming from a mile away. Even in the other rounds where Southbuilt decided to go C directly via long, the rotations from Bleed came in on time, and they were almost always walking into a stack. But the funny part over here is, CA, both the teams have one tendency: winning the second round of each half after losing the first.
Spike down, A.
Here's a funny one for sure. And we'll have to see if it continues on into our second map, because at this point for Bleed Esports, they'll take all the thrifties they can get. Similarly for South Buildo, Aziz with a great performance. It was Crazy Guy, the MVP here for Bleed, picking up a 22-9 least deaths and most kills. That's exactly what you want from your hunter. Truly making South Built his prey.
Exactly, right? And Crazy Guy can fill in any role you ask him to. He can anchor a side solo, he can trade you out really well, leave him in a clutch situation, and sometimes he will be successful in the clutch, and if not, he will definitely make it very expensive. The point in case over here is the first pistol round of the game itself, right? Crazy guy down to a 1v4, got 2 kills, got the plant as well. Sure, he did not win the pistol round clutch, but he gave enough money to his team to force buy in the second round, and then Bleed just stole the momentum away from Southbury.
Exactly. And I think that momentum really coming into play because we've seen this from Bleed before. Once they get their engine running, once they get into their groove, it becomes extremely difficult to put a stop to them. It's almost like they have to make a mistake, they have to get overconfidence and give you the opportunity. And South Built were given that opportunity, I must say, in a couple of rounds. But they were not able to pounce on it. They did fall prey to pop off individual performances from Bleed themselves, and it did come down to that. And it's going to be a sad one for them if they're not able to close off this series or at least come back in this series, because they're going to look back and think, hey, Haven was our map, and wonder if they could have performed better, particularly for me, Papi Chulo, right? Because this is a player who's had standout performances in every single matchup that South Built have been able to perform. Whereas on the other side for Bleed, it's been a plethora of all the players having good performances. So I'm excited to see if Papichulo does step up to the mark, because he gets his hand on an agent that gives them a lot more individual agency on the KO, on Ascent. But with an 8-18-8 performance, he's not going to be happy with himself, that's for sure.
I mean, we all have bad games every now and then, but I think it's less about the frags and more about the way you have to address the mental game over here. Papi Chulo usually is a lovely initiator, and the fact that Aziz has 20 kills means that Papi Chulo at least did his job well. And keep in mind, some of the most impactful rounds that Southbill was able to win was mostly because of Papi Chulo. So even though he has only 8 frags, all 8 of those frags were impactful. But what's more important is that the whole team of South Build overall failed because Bleed Esports got inside their heads. And frag wise, they were doing a decent job, right? Ja was hitting his shots every now and then. Aziz, sometimes the only man who was able to get so deep inside enemy territory that Bleed never cleared him out. In fact, he was so deep in that B site. There was this one round, I believe it was round 14, no, not 14, somewhere around the 15 to 16 round mark, where he was able to get into the B site. Bleed Esports used the Rolling Thunder to clear out the site, and it was Aziz who stopped most of the Bleed members and saved the round for his team. So while Aziz is out there clearing all this room, Papi Chulo sets him up. And it was mostly because of those two players that Southbuild were able to get that many rounds in the first place. Bleed Esports, of course, they not only were able to manipulate Southbuild into doing their bidding, but they also were able to read Southbuild like a book. So if you're winning both ends of the mental battle, Bleed obviously have a much bigger advantage.
Yeah, exactly. And Crazy guy will look to continue his form going into that next map with Bleed on Ascent, uh, on a much more rounded lineup generally. And that's where I am a little curious, because we have seen Bleed play with Juicy on the Jet and Darion on the Chamber for the map of Ascent, but we've also seen Bleed play with Darion on the Jet and Juicy on the Phoenix on that map of Ascent. So I wonder which lineup is going to come out, and if that particular double duelist lineup was merely an adaptation for Made in Thailand's aggression, or if it is what is standard for Bleed moving on forward. So either ways, it is going to be South Built wondering themselves, which one do we prefer, which one do we expect.
I mean, it's a difficult choice nonetheless. At least in Ascent, the chances of you getting tactically outsmarted are not as high as Haven, because Bleed was definitely the tactically smarter team over here, right? And not just tactically, people like Darion and Juicy were just hitting their shots and making life so uncomfortable for South Built Esports. Let's talk about Darion for a second over there. Most of the times when he dashed inside, he was definitely able to get a kill. There's seldom been rounds where he dashes in and goes away empty handed. And that created so much impact. In fact, Papi Chulo was getting bullied by Darion himself. So
Yeah.
that is one of the main reasons why Papi Chulo was not having as many frags this time as he did in most of his other matches. Let's talk about Juicy then. Juicy, oh my god, I don't even know what to say about this guy. His pop off performance in the second half pistol round is so bloody amazing. All the odds stacked against him. There's an alarm bot standing in his way. I'm sorry, not alarm bot, the trademark standing in his way, which easily detected him. Flippy is there to fight him. Ja came in from behind, was supposed to stop Juicy, but Juicy kills 4 people in the second half pistol and single handedly turns the round in Bleed's favor.
Exactly. In terms of match stats, you can see Bleed just a tad ahead in terms of not just damage, but literally every single stat. Headshots better, frag wins better, and of course objective wins as well. Southwell just I feel like not able to find a way to sort of dictate some rounds at least for themselves, because usually in a close matchup you'll see a back and forth in terms of tempo where one team is able to dictate the matchup for a few rounds, the other team comes back with an adaptation and is able to make them pay, but it felt continuously throughout the map of Haven Bleed was one step ahead. Well, let's head over towards the map Vito and refresh our memories with what's about to come next.
Well, at least this way, Haven is convincingly picked up by Bleed. This was a map that Southbuilt had picked for themselves, but Bleed, proving that not only are they mentally ahead, but also aim wise, they are superior. There were so many frag wins coming in from Bleed Esports as well. Up next, we are heading into Ascent, a map which Bleed is more than comfortable on. And it's important to point out that Bleed had a lot of frag wins in Haven because in Ascent, they will be relying on quite a lot of those. Ascent is a map where you can't tactically outsmart your opponent as much as you can in Haven. So even though Bleed were inside the minds of South built in Haven, in Ascent, having all that mental real estate is not going to account for much because it's so much easier to predict what's going to happen. And in those situations, hitting your shots is super important, and Bleed seem to be doing so.
Exactly. And going into Ascent, we'll have to really see Ja especially step up, because I do feel that he is one of those crucial players for Southbuilt Esports. We saw Aziz pull off a 4K and a Thrifty, so he's definitely found his form, and we'll look to continue it going into the next map where he gets a lot more agency on that agent. But I think overall, what we want to see from Ja is that headhunted yield value really put some terror into the hearts of Bleed, because right now they are running amok with no fear whatsoever, taking duels the way they want to. And I think that's Bleed at their strongest. When players like Juicy and Terion are not worried, when Terion is able to pull out casual flybys like it means nothing, that's where Bleed do start to really run away with the matchup. So moving on into Ascent, we're gonna have to see Ja and the rest of South Build, especially with Papi Chulo, step up to the mark and push Bleed back, ensure that the Bleed players themselves have a moment of confusion, a moment of confidence going down and really hurting their duels as a result, because otherwise, I think it's a quick wrap up on our final day of the qualifiers here. Crips has will because Bleed will take that final spot in the playoffs.
And I'm so glad that you brought up the flyby of Darion because it was that one beautiful round where Darion hit that flyby kill. And in the same round, Ja comes through with a ridiculous headhunter clip of his own. It was
Yeah.
just such a beautiful round for any fan of Valorant to witness. Highlight clips all over the place, multi-frags upon multi-frags. That's the ferocity we expect from a matchup like this.
Oh, absolutely. And that ferocity we're gonna have continuing onto the map of Ascent, as most definitely the streets of Italy will bleed. And we'll have to see really, Crips, where these teams lie, what kind of um bamboozle, I think that's the right word, Bleed have for
Mhm.
us now. Because maybe we don't even see Juicy on the Phoenix or the Jet. Maybe we see a Jet Arena W-less lineup once again, where Bleed is like, you know what, it worked out on Haven. Juicy is starting to pop off. Why not put him on that on Ascent as well?
Well, that could be a possibility. Juicy and Darion might just change some roles. There was Darion on the jet this time around. If Juicy picks up the jet, then I would be totally okay with that as well. Both the players have the
Yeah.
ability to destroy their opponents regardless of the agent they've picked up. Do you think a chamber will be picked up by Bleed Esports though? Because they seem to avoid it on Haven.
Well, I think if Juicy's on the jet, Darion's definitely picking up the chamber. So
Okay, then.
Darion's on that jet chamber role where he wants to get his operator ASAP, but it's really Juicy who's going to end up deciding the composition in terms of what he plays. So we're going to have to see if he's picking up a Reyna or a Phoenix, in which case Darion most likely sticking to that jet. But if Juicy elects to go back to one of his first loves, one of his main agents in Jet, then we're gonna get to see a much more rounded lineup from Bleed as a whole. Either ways, I think given the fact that they have that stable core in terms of Crazy Guy, Scary, and JH picking up the Sova, the Astra, and the KO respectively, sorry, the Fade, the Astra, and the KO respectively, does mean that they're in a comfortable spot one way or another to set up their duelist and chamber for success. And I think that's where Bleed's comfort really lies, especially with Crazy Guy picking up the MVP in the first map going forward. He's going to be in a great run of form, not just in terms of firepower, but we could see in the match in terms of those mind games that IGL was most definitely a step ahead of Southwell Esports.
Oh, definitely. Crazy Guy was on fire throughout this entire tournament, not just in the previous map, but I think he has picked up most of the MVP titles in the matches that Bleed have played, because this guy, not only is he capable of clutching out rounds when he's left alone, but even when his team is alive and healthy, he will be the guy who, while being the man responsible for setting up his duelist for success, in case the duelist fails, he will most certainly get the trade. I can't imagine what would have happened if Crazy Guy ever picks up the duelist role himself. Of course, he wouldn't, because, IGL things, IGL duties typically, but man, Crazy Guy, he has such a rich history, such a decorated past. I mean, Crazy Guy, keep in mind, back in 2016, when Asian Counter Strike was just starting to flourish across the world, Crazy Guy was the first ever player from Asia that the Western teams were scared of. And now he rightfully brings that legacy in Valorant as well.
Yeah, the name definitely tracks, right? That's exactly what his opponents are going to be thinking. Man, this is a crazy guy. He comes out of nowhere, shuts us down repeatedly, and I think that's one thing that is going to have South build thinking, hey, how do we counter him? How do we shut him down? How do we answer back? But more than anything, I think about countering or prepping or any of the ideas that Southfield may have to shut Bleed down. I want to see Southfield play their actual style, because we definitely missed that on Haven. I felt like Bleed was controlling the match the entire way through, and Southfield never got a chance to express their identity and try to stamp their presence on that particular map. So I want to see Southfield really back up, reset themselves for a moment, take a moment to take a deep breath and remember that it is a map by map affair, a round by round affair, and the only way any team is able to get the win is by playing their own game. You rarely are able to get a map win by entirely anti-stratting, where it may of course work for 1 or 2 rounds where you expect what the opponent is going to do. Overall, at the end of the day, you're going to have to rely on your strengths, not their weaknesses.
And if you're gonna play to someone else's weaknesses rather than playing to your own strengths, you are somewhat vulnerable, because if they decide to change up the approach, then
Yeah.
you're left wondering, wait, we had them in the bag, we had the read on them. Now that they've changed, what do we do? So you're always trying to be one step ahead of them, where you could just easily avoid that problem. And instead of getting into a race of being one step ahead, you just stay one man up, get your own plan enforced, have your man advantage secured in some other way. There's many ways to get about that advantage. On Ascent, it might be a little more straightforward than usual. But speaking of straightforward, let's jump straight into the agent selection. Ascent is right around the corner.
The agent selection now coming in as we wonder what we get to see from Bleed, and the answer is Juicy on the Jets. So, showing us that Phoenix was just the temporary adaptation to try and take the fight to Made in Thailand. They're back to their regular composition with Darion on the Chamber and Juicy on the Jet. And I must say, personally, I prefer this one because this is a mirror matchup against South Built Esports.
Definitely. The Chamber and the Jet, both in the hands of Ja and Aziz on South Build, and Darion and Juicy on Bleed Esports. That's gonna be the two tips of the spears just going up against each other. Crazy Guy on Fade, Papi Chulo on KO, both the IGLs responsible for setting up the teams. While it's not a complete mirror, the roles and the responsibilities are similar, and the way they play it out will also be somewhat the same. KO now in the hands of JH. What do you feel about this one?
I love it. I think we've seen from JH already in map one his ability to really anchor down his site, but I think the KO gives him a lot more agency to make some plays of his own. He combines beautifully with Scary on this particular matchup on the defensive half, and on the attack functions as that perfect support his team needs to set up utility wherever Juicy and Darion want to go. But the crucial fact about this KO versus the Breach for me is that where he's able to do the same on the Breach in setting up Juicy and Darion, he's now able to follow up much quicker and succeed in his ability to find better trades on this particular agent. So I think as a whole, in terms of agents at least, Bleed are going to be much more comfortable on this map than they were on Haven. And since they got the win on Haven, it's looking a little scary for Southworld Esports.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Bleed Esports looking to shut this down 2-0. Southfield Esports fighting for their tournament lives right here in the AMD SEA Championship. We are in the lower bracket finale. The winner goes on to face Made in Thailand, and the odds have never been higher. Let's get this map underway.
Oh, a last minute pause there. 1 second. I think we might have a small technical issue. So unfortunately, Crips, we're going to have to hold on for a second longer. But it does give us a moment to talk about the setups we're seeing on the screen for the attackers. And it seems like it is a lobby error all the way through. So we're going to have to restart the lobby real quick. So you get to see our beautiful faces for a second.
Well, no problem. I mean, we can still, buy some time. We can chill around for a bit and discuss what else these teams might have in store for us. Lobby errors happen every now and then, so
Yeah.
no problem on that end. At least now that we know about the agents of these particular teams, we still have the opportunity to theory craft. And my biggest question over here is, it's so weird to see that Astra is being picked up so often by these two teams. I would have surely expected maybe an Omen to come through for it from at least one of them, but no, it seems like the Astra is the go-to agent. Now, when you're in Haven and you pick up an Astra alongside a Breach, I can understand why you're doing so, right? Half the side will be stunned over by the gravity wells and the cosmic divides, and the other half will be stunned over by the fault lines and the flashes. So you have the potential to carpet bomb an entire site with that Breach and Astra utility. But now that you have only the Astra and no Breach, you can't stun everybody, but sure, you can maybe figure out where they are or maybe force them out into the open if they want to dodge your cosmic, the gravity well or the stun. So, I mean, is that the approach over here by picking up the Astra, or
Well,
is that just for comfort?
I think there's two ways to look at it. One, of course, like you mentioned, the Astra now, where it would combo with the Breach on Haven, it compensates for the lack of the Breach in terms of the extra pseudo initiator utility she provides when trying to execute the site. But more than even that, I think it comes down to the individual players, the way they play, right? Where if you're playing an Omen, you need to be a much more aggressive kind of player, looking for fights continuously, because an Omen's skill ceiling is really defined not by his usage of his smokes or his paranoia, but rather by the usage of his teleports. His ability to find space and be that pseudo duelist almost, where he's aggressing with his players on site, is where the Omen really thrives. Now, we've seen Scary really pick up the Astra and be that lurk presence, which you can't do as much in Omen, but as we immediately head into game, we see Papi
One
Chulo
enemy remaining.
popping the heck off. Bleed trying to execute a catwalk rush, get shut down, and in a matter of seconds, South will pick up a pistol.
Wow. Bust. We jump in and already the action's about to begin. The timing was absolutely immaculate because the moment I saw just a glimpse of the game, Papi Chulo sprays two people down in a single clip of the frenzy. Now that is just lovely to witness. More than that, Bleed Esports, who were trying to crunch in from a shot, got instantly reverse crunched by Southfield Esports, who just decided to casually jump out of the smokes of mid and walk in to pick up the fight. Bleed Esports, having lost the pistol, now look to steal the momentum away. At least this time they haven't forced up too many expensive weapons. They're still sticking to their sheriffs and classics. But yeah, it seems like they've picked up a thing or two from the previous game.
Yeah, Blade once again looking to take mid D4 after losing that player early towards B main. Know that they've got the Marshal to contend with there, which should tell them that mid is a freebie, especially with JH now able to slowly get information down A main for himself. Bleed with a clear plan, I think, now to just regroup on JH, whose presence has been revealed as he picks up the op, and just look for the site hit so they can get a plant. A plant on an eco ensures that they get some money and makes it a decent round overall.
So instead he wins the race, but at this point Bleed need to pick up the pace. 40 seconds left on the clock, and they need to make their way in towards the A site, where several people lie in wait. We have Flippy and Papi Chulo ready to delay them. Movement is going to make things even harder. The recon dart, in
30
case somebody is
seconds
already
left.
stuck through, will be revealed. Pro trying to stop them and spray, but the fragment will force him away. He can always shock out under the side and kill Juicy, but Juicy instead wants to pick up this fight by climbing up, and Pro is ready for this one. Very little time left. Spike is yet to be planted, and this is a disaster. Bleed finally get it down, and Darion protects everybody. That was certainly required off of him. Papi Chulo neutralizes all threats, but hey, this wasn't supposed to be. They weren't supposed to lose 3 members. The plant was never supposed to go down. South builds, sure they win the round, but Bleed have done enough economic damage.
Yeah, and because of that, South will lose a Marshal and a Spectre, I believe, in this round. So, Bleed, they've got the plant, they've done the damage, and just like that, they will be moving forward into their buy round with a thriving economy, while having once again beaten down the eco for South Build, ensuring that now Ja is delayed on his operator by ever so much. So, we're seeing a repeating tale that we saw in Haven come through. I wonder if that also chimes in with respect to the rounds converted, because South Build have gotten off to a better start with that 2-0 lead, but now on the bye, they're going to have to find a way to deny lead on this execute. 5-man strong into this B site, and while they spotted out 2, they know that Pro's just right there, lurking in the shadows, effectively turning this B site into a possible bloodbath.
Yeah, but Bleed are taking their sweet time, and rightfully so, because South Build have identified this approach. The amount of shock darts they've rained down over there have actually dealt enough damage to both Darion and Crazy Guy. Very vulnerable now. Smokes once again put towards mid. This might just make South Build believe that Bleed are trying to cross back in towards A shot, but that's actually not the case. Ja marking the angle will be the first one to realize that. Oh, but Juicy takes his head off. It's all down to Flippy. He's trying to make his way inside, but he's already isolated. Aziz arrives first. The rest of the party is a little late. And with this, they've already lost control of the side. Bleed have made their way inside. Punt will be going down any second, but before the retake even begins, Darion wants to shut it down. Papi Chulo offered 2 fights, wins them both, has the null command available as well. Will he use it right here and now? Or will he just try to make contact plays? Walks into JH's crosshair, and Bleed pick up there first.
While he definitely shouldn't be using the null command there, I'm quite surprised he doesn't at least try to flash through that angle and surprise one of the players, because you could see Scary was playing with the contact of his backup in both house. So with the contact coming through from both house, the peak was bound to come in for Scary, leaving Papi Chulo with no chance. But still, he done his job almost in terms of the damage at least, where he's able to take down more than a few weapons from Bleed Esports. And because of which now it will be South Build with the operator on Aziz's hands and an economic advantage in terms of weaponry in this particular round. Playing aggressively for mid control here on the operator, trying to stack up this B side with the drone. They have to back right up. They're going to choose to play retake on the null command, but with an operator, I must say retake is quite difficult.
Definitely. Maybe the null command can make it slightly easier, but all 5 members of Bleed are stuck in the side. Nobody has positions towards B main, so this might make the job of South Build a tad bit easier. Oh, but Bleed, they definitely don't want to make it easy. Darion already responds in kind, taking off Ja's head. Now the rest of them also try to walk inside, but they will not have any utility at this point because the other Null Commanders also activated. Flippy trying to trade. Scary peeks him at the same time. Both the Astros taking care of each other. Time is ticking, and Bleed are holding down the fort. Papi Chulo looks to impress his teammates and himself as well, but this is too tall of a task.
Not able to pull it off. That now command going down the drain. It is Bleed Esports picking up the round win. 2-2 on board now, and this is what I was worried about. But while Southville got off to a good start, you could see Bleed able to be much more successful in that eco, ensure that they got their mojo. Now with 2-2 on board and Southville once again forced to go onto an eco, Bleed will look to secure the lead for themselves for the first time in this matchup and continue that momentum going forward. But Southville, they have something to say. Looking for an aggressive play, start pushing down mid, but Bleed don't care, and this is the Bleed we are familiar with. Rinse and repeat down that B side till Southville are worried and terrified.
Market was already shot, but both the Jets engaging in an anime battle. Aziz missed his right click off the blade storm, and that was his undoing. So he also gets bamboozled by the amount of members rushing him down. Bleed Esports flawlessly take this one.
That was more like a trampoline battle than an battle with both of them jumping around, hoping their gun comes out first. It's Juicy who's able to pull it off. Oopsie daisy moment for both the Jets over there, where Juicy able to come out on top will be able to happily say, well, I got the kill, and that's what matters. And for Bleed, they got the round, and that's what matters. Now, Southville once again on the buy. Crips are saying the operator change hands. Goes
You want to
towards
play?
Shah.
Let's
see if he
play.
can find better value after it.
Shah has rightfully placed his operator there, and he still is able to teleport back to safety. Juicy, he does punish Aziz. 1-for-1 trade as both, not just the operators, but also the duelists engage. And after this exchange on the B side, the advantage still lies with Bleed Esports. But the moment I say that, Shah neutralizes it. Crazy guy is out of the picture. The MVP is down. And now Bleed are internally hemorrhaging. Darion versus the other breach. I'm sorry, the other chamber. Both of them just holding each other's angles. Miss and disengage. What comes next? Juicy not making any noise, looking to make a contact play. Will he get the success that he's desiring for?
Who certainly does. Takes down the operator, opens up the side, the floodgates for Bleed. But the totem post getting pulled in by that gravity. Well, it's Pro to make them pay. Finds that 2k and triples it down with another to shut down Juicy and find the third round for Southville Esports. Perfectly timed on that gravity well. Some beautiful coordination from Southville Esports.
Exactly, and not just patience, they also get the timing aspect really down to a wire. I mean, at the start of the round, both the teams just hitting blow for blow. It was still a 3v3, the odds were even, but Pro goes unchecked, and he realizes he's got an opportunity over here. The moment they all walk past him, he turns around, sprays everybody down, and that is the round secured for Southfield. Wonderfully done, masterfully orchestrated, and he decimated Juicy.
Once again, Southville picking up that man advantage. That operator switching hands has most definitely found value because it's revived a low jaw and it's revived a humbling Southville Esports. Now Bleed trying to recover it though with the nightfall coming through, but the Hunter's Fury from Pro delays them that much longer. But still Bleed persevere. They push through. They're resilient, pushing into sight, and they find a double kill. 3v3 now on the post run. Southville ready to execute the fast leading, but JH is delaying them, buying so much time.
Oh, the crucial position towards Wooden on the left-hand side. It's Darion who can make a difference, but he's already been taken care of. Down to just JH, and he's already bleeding. He's figured out where Aziz is, waiting for the other drop, but Aziz swings wide. Southfield win yet another round.
Retake coming through for Southfield, and Bleed have really got to find a way to staunch the bleeding that Ja is able to inflict on them with those initial operator shots. Pro able to recover the operator now, and it really does come down to the fact that Bleed cannot afford to overpeak certain angles. You have to respect Ja on the operator because this is a player we've been talking about for 2 maps now. Sure, he didn't get an opportunity to really display his specific skills on Haven as much as he would have liked to, but now with the economy for South built in a somewhat decent spot and the Tour de Force as well available, Ja's operator has become a mainstay for the next few rounds, so Bleed have got to make sure they respect it, otherwise he's going to continue to make them pay.
And Ja is not the kind of player who will just keep on opping in the same position. He will always switch things up. Sometimes opping towards B main aggressively. This time he's in towards A winery. Most of the times he will also go mid. But this drone has been very valuable. Spots out 2 players of 3 Esports already barging inside. There is a trademark available on Pizza in case they decide to encroach any further, but for now South Build can leave this area unguarded. They've only got Papi Chulo marking CT in case they decide to cross, but again, Papi Chulo's main intention over there is to back up A in case things go wrong in that direction. BD Sports on the other hand, they don't really want to make a move, and you can see that because the spike is already towards the T spawn. They haven't really picked it up yet. They're still looking for a pick first.
Oh, Bleed showing their intentions clearly on the map to us, setting up for a move to be here. With that cosmic divide coming through, they're ready to execute. Gravity well though delays them for that much longer, sprinters them onto site, but with Aziz left on his lonesome, it's down to Papi Chulo and Flippy coming through on the flank to make them pay and buy time for Aziz. They do exactly that and he finds the value with the time jump, holding it down in both house and turning this entire B site into an absolute massacre. A 3K found is Papi Chulo to finish it off as South Build secure a flawless round in that situation. And I really have to say, I love the fact, Crips, that we've seen Papi Chulo come back online.
Definitely, Papi Chulo's feeling himself once again. Not able to show up in Haven, tearing apart the opposition in a scent. Papi Chulo crunched Bleed from all directions. As soon as Bleed started to knock on the doors of Market, they started the flank. South Build jump out of a shot and try to reverse flank them already. And before Bleed can even reach the water of B site, they already have to worry about CT. They have to worry about getting backstabbed from Markets while they still haven't cleared the interior B site. So they had basically nowhere to go.
Get out of my
Nowhere to
way!
go, nowhere to hide. Reed getting taken down in plain sight. But South Build continuing on with the same setups might give an opportunity to Bleed to adapt. Now, I think South Build recognizing that Jaws operator here might be in trouble, have the backup immediately to help them out. But again, Juicy peeking out without any supportive utility coming out gives Ja a free duel on that operator, one that he's always going to win. Finds that first blood and backs off into sight immediately. Now covering a shot while his team stacks up a side.
Aziz is at least able to pick off Crazy Guy. That's not too much information available for the team now. Bleed Esports, they clump up together once more. They look to hit a shot where Ja lies in wait. This predator is ready for his prey to walk inside, but Darion hunts him down. Oh my god, that was disastrous. Papi Chulo feeling himself though. A spray down for the ages, and Scary left with 5 HP. Sure, he can recover the spike, but there's no way he can recover the round. Flippy discovers him and puts him in his grave. Southbolt Esports, they are holding down the fort, reinforcing their walls and keeping the invaders away.
And smiles all across the board as they reinforce each other's mental strengths as well. South Build really coming up huge, and in this halftime pause, we're seeing Godspeed relay some clear instructions now. Sorry. In this tactical timeout. I'm glad to see it come out, man. And I have to say, for when we had Bleed in their previous matches go through in this harrowing spot, really, like this horrendous situation where they are starting to lose their momentum, we rarely saw those timeouts come out. But today, that timeout coming off for Godspeed, I wonder how much of an impact it is going to make. So 6-3 on board. And for Bleed, it has to be how you deny the operator for Ja, because that for me has been the clear advantage for South Build again and again. Ja finding value every single time.
Oh yes, definitely. the value definitely comes out from South Built Esports whenever that operator is online. Sure, Darion was able to hit a lovely shot and delete that operator, but as much as it was Darion's reflexes coming into play over here, Papi Chulo also responded in kind. And you have to consider the age difference between these guys as well, right? Darion, Youngblood, supposed to have that super fast whack aim. Meanwhile, Papi Chulo, an old and experienced player, he comes around to show everyone who's daddy, and he sprays them down like it's a stylish highlight.
Ooh.
A swing and a
Threading the
miss.
needle there.
Yeah, but Darion, he picks up the pace. What the first chamber failed to accomplish, Darion definitely does. They've invaded the B side. There's still two defenders available over here. Aziz is only able to get one. Ja keeping the operator alive, and he's creating so much impact from the back lines. JH finally gets into the side, but to make sure nothing else goes wrong, he activates the null command. He knows that Papi Chulo has several flashes and the fragment available, so he can deny the plant if he wants. But wait a second, B are still reluctant to go in for the plant. They don't want to be
Spike
vulnerable. They
planted.
don't want to leave one man hanging. Flippy covers up both the entrances off the backside. JH detected. He's holding the one and done angle, and he actually makes it work. Crazy Guy steps out of the smokes right into Papi Chulo's face, shoots him in the head, and Bleed, they finally stabilize themselves with yet another round. After losing 4 rounds in a row, Bleed finally get one.
And the call in the timeout very much clear. Hit that B site and hit it fast, says Godspeed. And they do exactly that. Despite Ja finding value off of the operator, the fast hit ensures that they're able to trade him off. And at the end of the day, irrespective of how much value that operator finds, as long as he's not able to hold on to site,
You want to play?
that value
Let's
is
play.
rendered useless, because we'd happy to trade off these three as long as they set site control. But again, this time is Juicy. Gets caught out by Ja's operator when he went in for a very similar peak. This time he's able to convert it into first blood.
Well, you don't always walk away after encountering that op. South Built this time connect their shots and Bleed. They have to count their lucky stars that they didn't get hunted down in the previous round as well by that operator. And what the operator cannot accomplish, the Odin definitely will. They should discourage Bleed from continuing towards the B site. And that's exactly what's happening. Scary is looking to approach A long, looking to explore the avenue, hoping to punish any player of South Built who has already pushed up. But South Built are disciplined. They've got the man advantage. They have no reason to push out any further. And why should they? Why should South Built push out when Bleed are coming right to them?
One by one, Bleed are dropping like flies. As it once again comes down to Scary. In a 1v5. Not much hope here. Scary finds a top-down setup where takes out one, but is immediately traded out by the other. South Built 7-4, now securing a decent lead in this half. But this last round matters just as much here. Because if Bleed are able to make it a 7-5, on this particular composition, we've seen Bleed's defense be unpenetrable. They are a force to be reckoned with. So I think South Built, they need that 8-4 to ensure they're able to build on from the pistol, irrespective of win or loss, and look towards the buy to really secure some momentum in the second half. And they've got the advantages to make it happen.
Scanning ahead.
In terms of weaponry, South Built a step ahead.
Oh, and the moment you say weaponry, Aziz brings out the knives, shuts down Darion, and that is one crucial weapon offline now. Juicy, though, looking to continue his rampage. B-side liberated. The Cosmic Divide makes sure that nobody can come in from CT, but that's not where South Built want to go. In fact, all three of them clump up together and now look to backstab
Spike
from
planted.
B main. They're walking in slowly. Scary does expect one backstabber to come through, but does he expect all three of them to swing at once? Maybe the curvature of the smoke can help him get the advantage he's looking for. Nah, he's only good for one.
Still able to buy some time for the Bleed roster, waiting inside 3v2. In this situation, is JH to reduce the odds even further, as he finds one is Crazy Guy to trade off his life. 7-5 on board for Bleed, and this is why I kept saying 8-4, 7-5 is a big difference, because now Bleed get to go onto their own defense. And unlike the time we saw them against Made in Thailand, where they dropped this map, where they did not have a sentinel, Bleed most definitely do now. And with Darion already off to a great start in the first half, It's just a matter of time before he gets the operator for himself and starts being the menace that Ja was in the first half.
So wait, see, I have a question. Now,
Yeah.
in the previous map, you mentioned that Bleed have a win ratio on the attacking rounds of more than
Yeah.
60%. Does that apply only for Haven, or does that apply for Ascent as well?
No, I think that was a match-wide stat, which is why we were talking about in the pre-match
Okay.
lobby how that stat was kind of skewed because of Made in Thailand's matchup against Bleed, where they went up 10-2 on the attacking half, resulting in a severe increase in the attacking
In that
win
stat.
percentage, and
Okay.
then lost that map from 10-2 on the defensive half, resulting in a severe decrease in their defensive win percentage. Where in reality,
Okay.
if you go across all the matches that you have seen from Bleed throughout this tournament, it's really the defense they've been better at than the attack, especially on Ascent. Where, if, for example, if you remember the LBR matchup, they went 8-4 down against LBR when they were on the attack just to pull back for the win on their defense.
The numbers lie to us, CA.
Yeah.
They lie to us. It's a trap. We've been tricked, bamboozled even. But now the bigger question over here is, can Bleed bamboozle their opponents? They did it successfully on Haven. Can they do it on Ascent? Bleed definitely were able to get the rotations in on time in Haven whenever South Built Esports was incoming. The correct read was coming through from Bleed.
Yeah.
Is that something that will be seen in Ascent as well? Keep in mind that rotations in Ascent are much easier to cut off than they are in a map like Haven. But that's where the beauty lies. That is the belly of the beast. Can
Eh.
South Built Esports exploit mid enough to cut off the rotations of Bleed and punish them like that?
We'll definitely have to see. But I do have to defend the beauty of my numbers here for a second. Because while Bleed's numbers do lie, South Bills don't. They have a better win percentage on their defensive half than their attack, and you can see it in terms of the scoreline. A sub 50 win percentage on that attacking side does put Southbit in a precarious spot with Bleed, man. They're looking damn aggressive. 4-man pushing down that B site, and like you rightfully pointed out, Southbit exploit. They find that mid area for themselves. They're able to push into site, but they've lost the man on the back of it. Bleed will take a man advantage into the retake.
I wonder if South Built actually calculated this. They take control of mid, head instantly towards the B side, and if in case South Built decided to go towards B from B main regularly like a normal person would, they would run into this 4-man stack of Bleed Esports, and now they've completely just circumvented them.
Ooh.
Oh no, Juicy dies to the shot dots, and that makes things even harder for Bleed. The 4v4 retake, the odds are against them. The flash goes through, looking to set Crazy Guy up for success. Papi Chulo dodges it, but Flippy, he's still got his eyes open, and now Papi Chulo's back in action as well. South Built Esports, they're holding the fort down. Bleed have simply no way to enter the site, and this makes it even harder. Once again, it's Post Scary left in a near impossible clutch. He's almost pulling it off. He's got so many shots lined up. Aziz finally saves the day, but that came too close for comfort.
Most definitely, Tate Scary almost able to pull it off. Finds two on the back of his sheer mechanical skill, and the third on the back of his gravity. Well, the vulnerability really coming into play, helping him pick that one up. But against all odds, it's that shock dart kill, I think, that really ended up influencing the round, because without Juicy, you can see the difficulty in being able to force open some space on the retake. Bleed were stuck on the side and fell prey to Southwest. Now, once again, it is going to be the eco for Bleed Esports. They're looking to aggress down B main. They get spotted out by the zone, though I think it was just Crazy Guy. So using that little bit of false sense of information, Bleed maintaining a crossfire down B main, and Southbill potentially gonna walk into it, Clips.
Using the shot as well to clear everything out. Juicy realizes he's overstayed his welcome, dashes back out. Scary looks to peek just to save his teammate, but he ends up falling himself. Juicy now holding the same position where once Pro went undetected. If they don't check Juicy's angle, then this could be once again a deja vu of the previous half. But this time Bleed Esports, they have man down. South Built Esports can still group up and hit the B-side with full force. No, Juicy, he got a little too eager. Decided to check the angle just to make sure whether or not South Built are still there, and he gets the answer the hard way.
Exactly, and South Built for the flawless anti-eco here. will now be able to set up a really strong bonus going into this next round and Bleed in a bit of a precarious spot, because not only do they have to face off against the bonus, I think JH went in for a sheriff buy or invested some sort of money into that eco, which has resulted in him just being able to afford a Spectre in this buy. So despite it being a buy round for Bleach, Southbuilt have that little bit of an advantage if they elect to go towards the A side, but they're just choosing to default, and quite surprisingly so, because bonus is the one round where we rarely see teams default.
Spike left towards the bottom of B. Southport Esports have taken it slowly. Drone clears out this area. Doesn't spot out where exactly the trademark is, but now they will break it regardless. JH has the right idea. One of them got detected, but in reality, two people are present in this region. Southport Esports are all about to descend into this area. The fragment holds them at bay. Aziz realizes he might have just overcommitted this one because the gravity well would have definitely killed him if the fragment did not. And while Bleed have lost control of B, they now look to take control of A main instead. This will deny any post-on positions for Southport Esports, and they've also realized this one, so they decide to just back off instead. They can try it approaching A another day. If they approach from A main, then whatever hard work that JH did will be nullified.
And this is where I wonder if Southbuilt have indeed done their homework.
30 seconds left.
That A-shot hold between Scary and JH has been a terrifying one for many a team. The exact same hold, the pull and the fragment coming through, denying that choke point as a whole. Just for them to reposition, that's exactly what Bleed do. Crazy Guy finds the first, and on his contact, the flash peek for them together to shut them down. It is an easy buy round picked up for Bleed. And now Southbuilt go on to their buy themselves. And once again, I have to point out, you've got to go away from that short hold. And if you really want to go into short, you've got to go early, bait out all that utility, and then come back later.
Yeah, exactly. So while they did bait out the utility towards A short, they did not end up going there once again. They went towards A main, which I think was a better call from the side of Southbuilt, because if they went in towards A short without having cleared A main, then JH would have had a much easier time getting a multi-kill. Of course, he went undetected in mine as well, but I don't think that's a mistake that Southbuilt will repeat again. But what they can do is repeat this mid plus B crunch that they did in the pistol round. Once again, it's a very fast one. Oh, but they've been slowed down tremendously. They made contact, but now they're falling back from mid. Of course, the other people who are coming in from B main still looking to go inside, but after they've secured this pick, Papi Chulo stops JS from rotating as well. It's all down to Darion. He's positioned himself very well. He's got Crazy Guy alongside him, but they're not hearing footsteps anymore. Southport decide to go towards A instead from A heaven, and these guys are left by me, so Crazy Guy will never expect Jar to be there, and Jar gets a freebie. Darion now can't exit the B side without having to worry about Jar. He hears him go towards A main, he hears him go towards B main, and now he can continue moving around, but the round is already gone. It's a 2v4.
2v4 with a bit of bamboozle on both the sides, because Jar's not going to expect Scary to be here, so Scary does take him down, but still, a 2v3 on the retake. Now Southbuilt know exactly where they're coming from. Scary coming in from mid towards A shot. They should be expecting Darion towards CT.
One enemy
Marking that
remaining.
angle, it comes down to this duel. Flippy takes him down, leaving Scary in yet another impossible spot where he has to make the smart call. And does exactly that. Backs off, is going to save his weapon. And that's Southbuilt now securing double digits as they look to persevere their way towards Icebox. In a commanding spot to be able to close off this map. Southbuilt, once again, winning this round ensures that they delay that operator for Darion ever so longer, giving themselves that much more comfort without that worry of that operator picking them off one by one. But scratch my words, while Darion might not have the eco, it seems like Juicy does. So good.
Lovely adjustment from Southbuilt Esports. Slowing down the mid plus B crunch
enemy
when they
remaining.
thought the moment was right. They make their move in from B main, leave Ja to be present near the switches as the rest of the team takes control of CT and attacks A from heaven. Now that is an adjustment that Bleed would have never seen coming, and even if they figured it out, they would have had no way to stop it.
Talking about stopping it though, it seems like Southbuilt are expecting Bleed to deny this mid presence, and rightfully so, because you got Crazy Guy and Scary focused around this mid area as Bleed have switched up their setups. You can see the operator holding down A main while the Chamber solo fights for B main. I think Bleed playing with the idea that the Chamber is effectively playing single retake where he's looking for a fight early, but you can see his rendezvous set up to retake. But Southwell's presence entirely towards his A side. The null command comes online, but Juicy doesn't care.
He's still holding his ground. Pro finally shuts him down. Papi Chulo and Flippy turn up the heat, and all of a sudden they're falling like flies. Papi Chulo, this man has come alive. He's popping the hell off. Nothing stands in his way. Zerion, in a nearly impossible task, starts off by killing Flippy, but the odds are still ever stacked against him. Makes contact. As soon as Pro goes down, Papi Chulo peeks yet again. And somebody stop this man. He is feeling himself.
Most definitely. And I love it because we were talking about it before this map about how he has been one of the standout players for South Built Esports every single time. But we didn't see him on Haven. We did not see him pull off the performance we would normally expect him to. And it really did hurt South Built's chances. We're now on Ascent where with Papi Chulo coming online, you can see the South build that they're meant to be. 11-6 with a significant lead, forcing out the second timeout from Bleed Esports. And Godspeed, he's going to have some choice words to say if he's going to be able to pull back his team from the Netherlands, from this position where South build look, they are in cruise control grips. Nothing to stop Papi Chulo, nothing to stop Aziz. South build looking to pummel their way all the way to Icebox.
And if they go to Icebox, then on paper, Bleed have the advantage. But technically, this was supposed to be Bleed's map, and they're still losing it. With both the teams having picked off each other's maps, South Built, it seems like they might have just neutralized the advantage going into Icebox. 1 round away from map point, 2 rounds from the cold tundra. Bleed, if they want to shut this series down 2-0, they have to mount a comeback that they have never done before in this tournament.
Chills in their veins. And Bleed discover that momentum on the back of UC's Blade Storm that they most desperately need. A Thrifty would do everything they need and more, and Juicy seems to have started them off on the right note, but the trade is most definitely worth it for South Built because that weapon is not in a spot Bleed can recover from, especially with just over the first finding another. South Built look to push their way onto map point.
Oh, Crazy Guy taken down. That's a very... That's a big advantage for the side of South Built Esports. And the 2-4 continues to reposition. No. He's now going back towards A main. That's fine. A failed flash doesn't really bother them all that much. Bleed Esports, even if the flash connected, it's not like they would have been able to get a kill. 3 members of South Built are present over there, and one of them was playing anti-flash on top. So the trades definitely would have swung in the favor of South Built regardless. Now Bleed, having not only the man disadvantage, but also having lost a lot of the map control, are gambling. They're gambling and stacking towards the B side, which is the wrong call over here. South Built are just taking their sweet time to come towards A, and they will find it empty.
Suppressing.
They're playing with the mind games here.
30
After that
seconds
initial
left.
smoke, decided they're just gonna hold on, and like you said, an empty site, meaning a free post plant, especially with the Hunter's Fury online. South Built now should be able to pull off this round convincingly, and unfortunately for Bleed, their gamble does not pay off. They don't have the weapons to save either, so at this point, Bleed a tough choice to make. A Guardian, a couple Vandals, they seem to recover from the Crazy Guys, so actually scratch that. They will be able to save a couple Guardians and a Vandal, and we'll elect to go with that into the next round. So have the weaponry to fight it out in the next round, but with a 6-round match point in the hands of South Built, surely it's an inevitability for us to go to Icebox.
They must be feeling the cold setting in, a chill running down their spine. Bleed Esports can feel the bells of defeat tolling in Ascent. They might as well just start preparing for the next map, because South Built not only have the map point, but they have so much money that even if Bleed win 2 or 3 rounds in a row, South Built will not be affected.
Match point.
Exactly, and that economy very well built up for South Built. With 6 rounds to pull off this match win. It's going to be an extremely difficult affair for Bleed to pull this off, but hey, we've seen a comeback in this tournament from 10-2 down, so what's 12-6 against that? Bleed now with the operator on Juicy once again. Will look to leverage that, change up their setups, and go back to the one that we saw earlier with Juicy towards A main, looking to get aggressive, potentially even shut it down. They're playing for the fights down towards B main on Darion's rendezvous, but the 0 point pushes him back, and they're gonna now have to play deep inside.
Darion marking the angle from CT. At the same time, Crazy Guy's holding lane 1.
I got the spike.
Not the best crossfire, but if they can play bait and switch off of each other, then that would be wonderful. Of course, there's a good possibility that Darion will get smoked off the moment South Build Esports decide to commit towards the B side. But that's the point, they aren't committing just yet. And while South Build haven't shown any presence towards B in a few moments, Bleed Esports have taken control of A main. Papi Shooter probably wouldn't be expecting Juicy to hold this angle. And Juicy gets away with the freebie.
The freebie as well as the information that hey guys are headed towards the A side will want Scary, and with that information the combo of Scary and JH coming up huge. A combo we've seen many a times but still finds its prey. The fragment delaying as JH is able to find another. But Josh's presence towards this mid area
30
has
seconds
to be
left.
undetected. They have no idea how much value can he find though, because while he finds Scary, he's sure to be traded out instantly by Juicy. And just like that, that lurk nullified, Bleed in a good spot to be able to pull off this.
Nightfall makes the trails appear and both the members now revealed. Flippy is able to get at least one as the first person runs out of bullets, but Darion clinches the round. Still a long way to go for Bleed Esports.
Long way to go, but not many opportunities
Seconds
to
left.
fumble. They've got to be perfect the entire way through. They cannot afford a single error, a single mistake, a single player caught off guard. South Built are sure to pounce and look to take them to Icebox. And I have to say in that regard, if Bleed pull off this comeback, it will be a statement like no other. Because while we've seen Bleed many a times pull off wins from their great starts, while we've seen Bleed stomp out teams as well, you've never seen a Bleed that has been able to come back against all odds. So for Bleed to do that right here, that would be championship quality.
Definitely. They've persevered when the odds were in their favor. Now it's time to show us what you can do when the tables are stacked against you. South Build once again taking a very slow and methodical approach. They're taking their sweet time. They're hoping that Bleed get desperate and try to go for a pick. And while Bleed have taken aggressive positions towards B main, they aren't really showing any such presence towards A. Both the Chamber and the Jet, the two characters who can get out of jail free, are holding down B main in aggressive angles. If one of them TPs back, it might just lull Southbolt into a sense of security, a false sense of security rather, that the initial aggressor has gone and now they are safe. Darion playing anti-flash, gets away, but no! As he shuts him down! And Juicy, he can't move away, he can't dash because he's suppressed. At least he survives. Scary helps him out. But the op just simply not effective over here. At least he's now rejoined by his teammates here in the backside, so he has some hope of surviving. Crazy Guy also helps him out. And Juicy now finally makes that operator sing the songs of death. Spike drops in no man's land. Ja has no chance of recovering it. And Bleed survived with 3 players standing. The operator also recovered, so amazing stuff. Bleed are stabilizing somehow.
Somehow indeed, but yet again, the opportunities for South Build are bountiful. Now, I think they should be able to afford one more buy. Oh, barely so. Aziz should be able to drop out a weapon and play on his Blade Storm, and barely South Build able to afford one more buy. So this is a crucial round for both of these teams. While South Build have 4 more opportunities to close off this map, if they lose this round, that's 2 opportunities effectively lost with them having to go on towards the eco. Down to Aziz with that Blaze Storm to try and make something happen. He's glad that they smoked off Juicy on the operator, but the Prowlers denying Aziz's approach. South Build defaulting back towards that mid area, acknowledging that Bleed are playing heavy towards this extremes, looking to shut down site. And we'll see if this pays off, because with Aziz breaking that trademark, rotations are sure to follow.
Bleed Esports once again forcing Darion to go back towards mid. The breaking of the trademark definitely draws in the rotation, but are South build ready for this one?
Oh, look at
They're
the
slowly and
push.
steadily creeping in towards market, and at the same time, Bleed have already pushed out of fate. So this basically confirms the beliefs of Bleed. They know now for sure that South build have no choice but to crunch mid plus B.
And with the double operator setup effectively online, it's easier said than done. Before they force to hold on site, but both the operators miss. It instead the blade storm that comes off huge. Aziz opens up the site, and despite that double op, Bleed, they have nothing to say. South built now the chance with the double flank coming through. Could be huge, but Flippy says no. And
30
just like
seconds
that,
left.
Bleed, they crumble like a set of dominoes. In the very last moment, in the very last buy for South build, they pull it off. And now in a 4v2, the two ops in the worst spot ever to pull off a retake.
Oh, Darion, he sees an wants to take the head. Spam won't work, but will it at least force the other guy to push out? No. Southbolt Esports are disciplined. They don't make any unnecessary moves, don't take any unnecessary risks. This is their chance to shut things down right here and now. Juicy strikes, so does Darion. Bro, holding him back. Aziz looking to make this play. He knows he can challenge Juicy, and he finally gets it done. Southbolt Esports have taken a scent to themselves. Both the teams winning each other's map pick, and this means we are headed to game number 3, Icebox, coming up next.
Yeah, Icebox we head on into in match 3 as South build returned the favor to Bleed. 13-8 was the victory for Bleed on South build's map of choice, and 13-8 is the victory for South build on Bleed's map of choice as we now get ready to head into the cold areas of S12, more popularly known as Icebox. The containers containing the dead bodies of one of these teams with their tournament lives on the line. I couldn't choose a better map to finish us off, but props to South built, man. That was the last buy. They could have pulled it off. And Aziz leading the charge on that blade storm really made it count.
Oh, and it's not just Aziz. You also have to account for Flippy being so
Yeah.
mindful of that flank. If he would have let them slip through, then maybe Southbolt Esports would have struggled a little bit because no other presence is available towards B mid. But Flippy continues to stay on mid, and that was such a powerful position. Not only did he get that double kill to stop anyone approaching from B link, he also could have swung around and killed any people in market if there were people approaching from that region.
Target ace.
Then the highlights, you can see the crucial factor, I think, really for Southbet Esports is the rise of Papi Chulo in map 2. But we did not see him step up to the mark in Haven. He most definitely went above and beyond and delivered for his team in this second map. And just like that, with Papi Chulo coming through, it was like a rising tide lifting all the boats, lifting the spirits and the hopes of Southbuilt Esports, and able to get every single player online to pick up this particular map. And Leith, they're gonna have to really go back and wonder what's going wrong with Ascent, where they started off this tournament looking real strong against LVR. Since recently in this phase 2,
Left.
made in Thailand, and now Southbuilt Esports taking them down on Ascent, it has started to look more like a weakness than a strength for them.
Last player
So,
standing.
Bleed's ability to play aggressively towards the edges of the map, especially while putting out B main and A main, was definitely helping them out, gather some early information. But all that comes at the cost of them relinquishing mid, which Southbuilt exploited to another level. Southbuilt were using mid like their bread and butter to get not only map control, but also, even if they don't use anything out of it, even if they get control of mid, they don't necessarily need to make any moves from there. They can just leave
30
one
seconds
player over there as a lurker who will then relay all the information, relay all the footsteps back to his teammates, and that itself is enough.
And that's
And of
why I'm
course, you can
really
always
surprised.
continue crunching the way mid is supposed to be used.
Yeah. And that's why I'm really surprised that they never really tried to change their setups and trap mid at least once, because while you can do attack conditioning by forcing down a particular area, let's have a look at the scoreboard as we continue our conversation. You can also, I think, try to trap mid, because again and again you have set up that playstyle where you are crunching down those extremes. Leave a KO in there with that trademark where he can pop flash on the contact of that trademark and shut them down, or even play that trap setup we saw between Crazy Guy and Scary once in a while. I think that little lack of flexibility from Bleed Esports, not just on their defensive half, but also on their attacking half against Jaws Operator, really costed them this map.
Definitely. The operators singing the song of That's for South Built Esports. Papi Chulo popping the hell off, man. 21 kills with only 13 deaths. That is ridiculous. And he's got so many first bloods too. Of course, Chamber in the form of Ja and Jet in the form of Aziz, the usual contenders to get a lot of first bloods, did show up. But Papi Chulo, man, while he was not supposed to be the entry fragger, he did hold on some areas, especially in the attacking side, where he was looking for aggression from Bleed, and he was able to punish that very, very easily. More than that, Papi Chulo always found himself in the right place at the right time. He found so many members of Bleed off guard. Sometimes he catches Juicy with his pants down. Sometimes Darion is not looking the right way. Crazy Guy always tried to help his teammates out, but in the process of helping them out, he forgot that Papi Chulo can easily punish him. And that just tells you how much experience Papi Chulo has. He's played against the likes of Scary several times in the past, under different lineups, in different games, and all that experience now just making him the king of this server.
Absolutely. 1-1 in terms of that series scoreline as we head into the final map with one final spot left from these SEA qualifiers in the final playoffs. It's South Built Esports versus Bleed Esports with everything on the line. Everything they worked for in this last week now boiling down to one map. And it's quite ironic that I say boiling down because we're heading into one cold, ruthless map in Icebox here, Crips. It's going to be one where Bleed have got the number for South Built before, but can South Built exact revenge and pull off the reverse sweep? All of these questions we'll answer after a small break.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to AMT Presents the SEA Championship VCT Off Season official event powered by Ampverse. We are here in the lower brackets match between Southbuilt and Bleed Esports. Both these teams have been able to win one map each, and surprisingly, neither of those maps were their own picks.
Yeah.
They won their opponent's picks, and now we are heading to neutral territory. The cold tundra of Icebox. Who's going to come out on top?
I mean, you say surprisingly, but this has almost become somewhat of a trend in our phase two of the SCA qualifier with teams trading maps with each other. So we'll have to see. But let's head on over towards the map veto so we can just refresh our memories with respect to not just the final map we're going to be heading towards, but also the bans these teams had come into play. And I think with regards to that, we have to go back all the way towards the group stages scripts because the last time Bleed and Southbuilt met each other before today, it was on Icebox where Bleed was able to get a convincing victory.
How convincing was it?
So 13-7 for Bleed Esports, I believe.
Oh,
So
okay then.
quite
Yeah,
convincing in that matter.
that is indeed quite convincing. So Bleed Esports, having already won at least a single game in Icebox against this same team, does give them a little confidence going into this one. And Bleed Esports have also played Icebox this tournament, so they are definitely in form. But that also means that Southbuilt have plenty of information that they can research from. There's several matches of Bleed Esports that they can look at and figure out some common tendencies. If not figure out the tendencies, then at least identify the trigger points.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we saw that stat earlier today for Bleed. It is their most picked up map where they look to choose it as often as they can. And it's why I'm quite surprised they didn't elect it as map 2 as well, considering the fact that they have beaten Southbuilt on it before. It felt like with Ascent, Bleed were almost challenging themselves to try and fix some of the issues that we saw ever present in Made in Thailand. But it's given an opportunity to Southbuilt to pull off once again a reverse sweep against Bleed Esports. And I say once again because Made in Thailand did it in just the last round against Bleed in the upper bracket. So Bleed in familiar territory, though not some that they want to be necessarily familiar with.
Well, going into Icebox, Bleed Esports, these guys are going to be starting on the attacking side. Last time they had picked up that combination of the Jet and the Reyna, and it was an absolute wrecking ball. They had so much freedom, they were going ham. Crazy guy, he was defending mid so well so that any time the defending team who was trying to make a move through either tube or from under tube or even trying to go for backstabs, they had to run into Crazy Guy, and he was a solid anti backstab.
Yeah, every single time, crazy guy able to ensure that there is no shady presence coming in from the flank for his team. And I think in general, that's where both of these teams are going to boil down to. Where in Haven and Ascent, they got a lot more room to be creative. I fear Icebox does not leave that room. It really comes down to finding the right reads and the moments for execution because with the propensity of the operators finding so much damn value as we saw on Ascent, that is only going to increase on Icebox, especially for both Ja and Darion. Now, what I am though very excited about is Juicy, who had a decent map. I wouldn't say he had an off map on Ascent, but back
Yeah.
on his comfort pick of Reyna on Icebox, he's sure to exact some vengeance for that map lost.
Yes, that is indeed a very important point. But what's even more important is the battle of the two Vipers. Last time, South built, I mean, okay, South built haven't really played all that much Icebox, but Bleed definitely, whenever they are on the map of Icebox or any map for that matter, which involves the use of a Viper, Bleed Esports manage their fuel economy very well. They almost never find themselves in a position where they have the right window to attack, but they can't because the Viper doesn't have enough fuel or the wall is not up yet. So that is one aspect that Bleed are always successful in, while a lot of other teams struggle in that matter.
Yeah, and let's have a look at our agent selection to see if Bleed have maybe prepared Bamboozle because at this point we've understood Southbuilt to be the kind of team that is going to stick to their agent. Oh,
Hmm?
I,
Okay, then.
okay, Southbuilt. I see. We taking me back on my words. They've got a plan set up for this particular matchup. They don't want that lost to repeat itself, and boy oh boy, Aziz on Arena, that I wasn't expecting.
Definitely. They fight fire with fire. They fight Reina with Reina. As he's picking up the Reina, it's not something I would have expected because he usually picks up either the Jet or something like a Raze, characters
He's
that
usually
have a
playing
lot of
the
movement ability.
Yeah, but on this map, he's actually usually playing the KO. They play that no duelist lineup with Aziz on the KO, Flippy on the Viper, and Papi Chulo on the Sage. But they've switched up quite a few number of roles to bring in
Exactly.
Aziz on the duelist, where Papi Chulo's now picked up the Viper.
The only person who still remains on the same role is basically Pro
Yeah,
on the Sova.
and
That's
Ja.
about it. And Ja on Chamber. That's about it. Everything else has changed.
And Ja, you have to expect, and I guess Pro as well. It's like they are the mainstays in every single map almost. For South Built Esports, they're going to play Chamber so.
Well, at this point, Bleed Esports definitely have a curveball thrown against him. Godspeed, the coach, must be scratching his head, figuring out exactly how Southbuild are going to counter them. With a lineup this similar, Southbuild can literally mirror everything that Bleed Esports is doing. And now Bleed have to question, do we know ourselves well enough? If Southbuild use our own strats against us, can we counter those things? Can we fight fire with fire?
It's
Can we
quite
bring the
ironic.
heat in Icebox?
It's quite ironic, Crips, because it's like Southbill prepped so well for Blade, they decided to become Blade. And now we're gonna have to see if that prep is enough, or does Bleed have more in the tank? Do they have some aces up their sleeve to be able to pull off against Southbuild? Because it feels like Southbuild definitely have taken the first advantage or the first step ahead with this bamboozle thrown into Blade now. It is going to be Bleed once again starting on the attacker's side. A trend that we have seen across this series, but not something that has necessarily yielded fruit. Moving in aggressively towards his A side, they knife down the wall, get ready for the hit, but look at South Built. Once again, it's almost like they're mimicking Bleed, a three-man flank coming through from B.
Last time Bleed fell victim to something like this, they had to adjust by going towards the A side. But this time, that was the plan right from the start. Crazy guy spots the flank coming in, and they realize A must be relatively defenseless. And there's only going to be one person who can actually stop them over here, and that too has fallen back. But hold on, instead of going for the plant, they go right outside. The spike has been dropped in no man's land. Southfield Esports can actually stop them from recovering it. Flippy holding his ground, and he's got every single frag he needs. Juicy finally shuts him down. But at this point, it's a bit too late. Southbuilt Esports, they have no idea what's happening. They can only make a guess that Bleed will
30
make a move
seconds
towards the
left.
B side, and Papichulo is already on the move. He can easily intercept
Last
Juicy
player
because he's out in the
standing.
open. The
Remaining.
spike goes down, but at the cost of his life.
Me too, though, and they have no idea where Scary is. He's going to be the Slender Man right now, coming up behind them, with both of them looking in the same direction.
enemy
Aziz is the first one to get caught off guard, but it takes a shot too many to take him down, and that extra shot, that extra bullet is all Papi Chulo needs. Turns it around to try to avenge his comrade, and does exactly that. 1-0 picked off for Southwick on that pistol already. Our first round is so damn exciting, Crips. I can only wonder what the rest of the map has got in store for us.
And it's not just this one, CA. Every single Icebox game where Bleed have started on the attacking side, the pistol rounds are way out of control. They're always whack. This time, Southbuilt Esports, since they had so many people coming in from T-Spawn, Bleed realized that even if they go for the plant, they will not be able to take post-plant positions on Belt because Southbuilt have already taken that under control. So they decide to change things up. They hightail it towards the B side. Of course, they lose a lot of members in the process of doing so. But this is similar to something that happened in the past. The last time Bleed Esports played the last time Bleed Esports played Icebox, they did something similar. They went into its kitchen and they wanted to go towards the B side, but made an adjustment and went towards A via CT spawn. This time, the opposite of that happens, but again, via CT spawn. So, Bleed basically never have a straightforward pistol round on Icebox attacking side. At least the anti-eco seems more or less straightforward. They head into the A side, plant the spike, no casualties, and that's about it. Now the retake begins.
5v5 on the retake now. With the flank coming through for Ja, Southbuilt trying to ensure they've primed all angles before they bounce. The double layer setup as they move in now should tell them that there's at least one towards 410, but the snake bite is huge as it displaces several members and makes vulnerable a few. Pro taking full advantage, is able to find a double, but it seems like Southbelt actually on somewhat of a force here. Will end up falling prey with Jaw left on his lonesome. His headhunter not finding any value. It's Bleed to pick up the round. And scratch that, my bad. It was Bleed with the force here, able to secure the round for themselves. And at this point, we've seen this from Bleed so many times. We saw it on Haven. They do the force, they pick up the momentum, and after that, it becomes almost impossible for Jaw to get his hands on an operator in the next few rounds.
Yeah, the only time when Bleed did not go for a force buy like this was on Ascent.
And they lost
But it's okay, that's
Yeah.
correlation, not necessarily causation, but still shutting down Ja and making sure that he doesn't get that operator is a viable strat. And I just find it very surprising how Bleed are almost always able to find success on their force buys. At least in this series, they've never been punished for doing so.
Oh, but look at this. While Bleed continue their presence towards his A side, they want to rinse and repeat and hit it once again. They've left Scary to mark down the flanks, expecting Southbelt to come through, but Southbelt say no. They're gonna back off, play fully on the retake in their buy round, but they've already lost the member and Bleed on the post plant. Even if Scary is able to back off with Crazy Guy joining him, they've got the utility to be able to pull off this post. So Southbelt, they need to speed it up because not only do they need to clear side crypts, they need to go all the way towards Scary, towards Ben.
Yeah, that man is going to be basically responsible for shutting down everyone. And in case something goes wrong, the snake bites from Scary will be the backup plan. But I don't think they'll need to encash their insurance policy. They won't need Scary to put down the snake bites. They've got every frag in the bag. And the Esports take this round convincingly.
Yeah. 2-1 in favor of Bleed Esports now, and we finally gonna see full buy come in for Southbelt. Ja with an operator, but a glass cannon one. No shields. I wonder if he's got enough for a trademark. Yeah, most certainly does. Places that towards the kitchen area, but it does mean Bleed have the opportunity to just go for the crazy swing on him and shut him down. And in terms of that, I must say, I feel like a good strat for Bleed at this point is find the operator and tell Darion to swing at him, because so far Darion has had Ja's number.
Oh? They don't make any efforts to conceal their sons. They're still holding on towards pipes. Southbelt Esports keen on re-engaging. Aziz wants to go for the speak desperately, and that was a little bit of an overextension. Juicy punishes him for doing so. But the moment Bleed get a pick onto the A side, they hightail it towards B, and the only man standing over here is the Viper. It's gonna be a massive responsibility on the shoulders of Papichulo to hold this area down.
And he does exactly that. Uses his one way to find the first pick and gets a second to
Spike
deny the
down,
spike
B.
planted. The 2K for Papichulo ensures that the man advantage now equalized and Bleed in a very tough spot because they can't exactly get the spike planted. Gonna wait instead for the Viper wall to come through, but it gives more than enough time for Pro to spray down this wall, removing that safe spot for Bleed to plant. With just 40 seconds left, they can't exactly run for the rotate either because it's just gonna give them away. So Bleed trying to play with time and hit it at the last minute.
Right here.
30 seconds left.
Oh, I'm not too sure about this one. Time is running out. They are yet to plant the spike. Oh, the wall breaks! And all of a sudden, Pro is left out in the open, exposed. Just stops Juicy from extending any further, but they're still challenging him yet again.
Remaining.
Crazy guy, he tried to go for the plant, but he instead baits out all the frags, and he wins that. What on earth just happened? Crazy guy definitely stepping up more than he is required to. And that was such a weird way to clutch the round too. He just basically faked the punch and baited everyone into beating him.
Smart. You can see that time factor coming into play. Pro having no idea which angle to hold. Gets caught out, and despite
Enemy remaining.
finding that initial 2K, Crazy guy plays it out perfectly. Gets the trade and then fakes the plant for another. And with the clutch coming through for Bleed once again, the eco for Southbelt in tackle, but they have the right lead. They stacked up this A site and Jaw gets them started off in a triumphant fashion and doubles down and makes sure that he's trouble. finds a 3K
I have the spike.
and keeps the hope for Southgate alive. But with the trades coming through, it's still very much Bleed with a man advantage. Albeit, I must say, a very thin one because look at Scary's health bar, man.
Yeah, he's got a foot in the grave already, but I can say the same for the other side as well. Bleed Esports already have Scary low on HP. South build. At once upon a time, Pro was super low on health,
Planted.
but luckily Flippy is alive, so he can heal him back up. Crazy guy looking to make a play through tube. If he times this correctly, he can shoot them both in the back of their heads. The recon should give away the
enemy
play.
remaining.
Crazy guy sees an arm, takes a leg, and sprays down Pro as well. Lovely attack from Bleed. And they stabilize themselves once again.
We saw what happened in the first map when Crazy Guy came online. That clutched in the last round and the backup is
Enemy
Scary to be
remaining.
able to pull off another. This 2K for Crazy Guy most certainly makes it seem like he is once again coming online, and that might just spell the end. The doom for South Built, especially with this 4-1 lead. They need this round against all odds. They need to pick this up because once again they're on a bye. If they lose this, they're on their eco, and yeah, while they've got ultimates like the Thor, they're forced to pull it off. It's easier said than done because the Hunter, he's feeling the form, he's going for the hunt, but all he finds is a tag. He's not able to convert into a kill.
So now having to relinquish this area, forced to fall back and regroup with this team where Flippy also lies in wait. Mid being aggressively contested by Bleed. But look what they have done. They get Darion to the bottom of Boiler, and then the rest of them are now trying to make a play through Tube. It's a good read from South Built Esports. They've also adjusted accordingly. They're ready to intercept over here. Flippy one taps away at Juicy, and he's still got more people to back him up.
Wall comes up, so they're looking for the resurrect onto Juicy. They want to bring the Queen back online, but the wall was taken down, and Flippy makes them pay. The Queen instantly taken down. That's the resurrect taken off, and South Built, not only do they look like they're in a good spot to pull off this round, but they've waited out some crucial ultimates to boot. Scary finds himself at the butt end of an headshot by
30
Pro,
seconds left.
and Bleed, they have nowhere to go.
Yeah, they're surrounded, boxed in. If they try to make a play under Tube, Jar is here to
Last
intercept
player
with Flippy
standing.
on Kitchen, and he's already
down,
killed the
B.
spike carrier. Crazy guy. He's pulled off the impossible before, but not this time. The odds are just too heavily stacked against him. South Built Esports get yet another round. It's kind of funny, CA, because every time in this tournament, some team has tried to execute a mid plus A play, they have not succeeded. Whether it's Bleed, whether it's Made in Thailand, whether it's Naos, any team who's tried to execute the mid plus A play has just simply never succeeded. Sure, mid plus B has resulted in successes of varying degrees, but mid plus A has always been a colossal failure for anyone who attempts
You
it.
want to play? Let's play.
Yeah, it's why it's not really a common strat because you're gonna have to expose yourself
Deploying
to CT,
drone.
to players marking Kitchen as well all the way through. It's a very difficult strat to pull off, and one usually left to see in ecos and bonuses. But
Yeah.
talking about exactly that, Bleed now going back to what has worked for them the most. The A hit coming online, and it's Juicy on the Empress to try and make something happen. But the counter Queen, Aziz with his pick on Reyna in this map, pops out the Empress, and instead with the trade is able to find the reset. Again, forcing Bleed back where they're stuck in this weird spot where they can't go forward, but if they do go back, they'll find themselves in just as much trouble. Darion though fishes them out and gives them a chance.
Jar still holding the operator. He doesn't have a
Sense going
rendezvous.
up.
In case something goes wrong, he's gonna be dead to rights, and Jar takes first blood. He still strays around the corner. Crazy guy out. They're still ready to peek him again, and there's backup coming in from Raptors as well. This is a two-pronged approach that might work for
enemy
Bleed.
remaining.
And Clarion delivers! JH also stepping up when it's required off of him. Papi Chulo, he has almost no way to win this round. Viper's picked activated, Darion on height, first contact available, and now there is a wall that stands in his way.
It's a shame you had to die, but
Darion
my bigger picture.
shutting down Papichulo to get Bleed that 5-2 lead. And this is where we must once again look back in history to look at the stats. The last time Bleed and South Build faced off against each other, it was 6-6 in the first half with, of course, Bleed starting off on that attacking side. Bleed were then able to convert a 6-6 half into a 13-7 victory, showing us how damn strong their defense can be. Now, there is a caveat to this particular stat here, Crips. The caveat being that Southbuilt was running a no-duelist lineup on their attack, which is particularly difficult to execute. So, with the Reyna, maybe we see that changing in the second half, but Bleed don't want to even let it get there. They picked up a commanding lead in the first.
Yeah. And at this point, the Reyna isn't really paying off dividends. Aziz
Yeah.
picked his first frag in the previous round, and maybe that would have been a game changer, but he was instantly neutralized by Darion. He's not having a great game. And maybe this Reyna might have been a mistake from the side of Southbuilt, but they've still got plenty of rounds to prove us wrong on that aspect.
When I see the Reyna for a player like Aziz, I go back all the way to a player called Zeke. At the start of Valorant, he used to play for G2 Esports, and his Reyna would be an angle Reyna, where he tried to play one and done angles exactly like that, where he could then dismiss out if he needs to. And as he's doing that, finds the huge kill onto Darion. He's not going to be able to back off, but Bleed, they're going to look to reaggress onto this exact site, expecting Sora to leave it out. And their expectation in vain, because Jaz got his Tour de Force to shut it down. A trade, though, ensures that Bleed should not be able to back up, because look at Crazy
30
Guy.
seconds
He's got
left.
B-side for all by himself.
Yeah, Southbuilt now looking to use the Hunter's Fury to catch at least one player. They don't connect, but with Crazy Guy having already cleared out B, the spike is on its way. Maybe Papi Chulo in the vicinity can hear this rotation from the bottom of Tube. But even though he can hear it, he can't really stop it.
10
The best that
seconds left.
Southbuilt can do is reinforce their numbers and hope that they're able to win the trade game.
Oh, Crips. The flank from Scary now, though, Bleed. Where they give up one position, they're able to pull off another. Crazy Guy playing the snowman angle is sure to find a multitude of flags. They've all separated themselves. For Bleed, this is not a 3v5. This is a 1v5, 1v5, and a 1v5 from three different angles. And slowly but surely, they'll try to convert. It's Crazy Guy to start us off to find the first. Uses the recon to spot out many more, and while JH buys time, the backup for Crazy Guy has come through. He finds the second, takes that at third, and equalizes it against all odds. And now with no information of where Scary is coming from, he's gonna have to hightail it because the plant is not for him. It's Aziz. You mentioned it, that Reyna needed to come online, and she most certainly does. Finds a crucial 3k to pull off a round that, even though it was 3v5, looked like
Exactly. The biggest disadvantage for Bleed over there was that they had no trading potential, but that's exactly what they were hoping to capitalize off of. They were hoping that Crazy Guy will be able to stop as many players as possible, and while that triple kill was amazing, nobody else could really make as much impact as him. The flank from Scary would have been amazing if he moved a little faster, but in the hopes of not giving away sound cues too early, he had to then hightail it from the halls, and at that point, Aziz heard him. And Aziz finally comes alive. In the round that Southbuilt needed the most, he picks up a triple.
Once again, looking to execute onto this A side, but at this point, Southbuilt say, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, not happening, bro. They've got the rotates already coming through with a 4-man stack. Make that a 3-man stack now as they rotate back. It's still a heavy stack to hold on to this side. Aziz playing that one and done angle is the crucial one to watch out for, because he's the one sure to kick us off.
One playing on swing, one playing on contact. Oh no, Aziz has been just shut out of the action.
Spike planted.
There were so many people of Southbuilt ready to defend this area, but they don't even get to fire any shots, and Bleed just wall them off of the action, plant the spike, and fall the hell back.
Oh boy. Bleed saying stack all you want, they sneak a plant away and now can play purely on the coast. They've got a ton of utility to boot, but they've got to be wary about their flank. He shut down JH and will now deny that post plant by the utility to come through. But Bleed saying, you push us from the back, we're gonna push on forward. You don't want this Lion to be cornered, and it's Juicy leading the charge to take them down.
Oh my god.
Comes up huge, finds another, and is Scary once again in a 1v2, but he's not got the opportunity for his util. He's got the backup from Crazy Guy to pull off a clutch, and boy, I love this about Bleed, man, Crips. We saw this in the pistol as well. You push them from the back, they're only going to keep pushing forward.
Exactly, right? When Bleed realize that they're about to be surrounded or when they're about to be flanked, they just continue pushing towards the opposite end of that area. So that they don't get boxed in, right? If they're getting pressured from the left side, they will push towards the right to alleviate that pressure. And that's exactly why Bleed is such a difficult team to play against. The moment you try to box them in, they will rip the whole map apart. They will destroy the geometry of this box and turn it into an open killing field where they succeed. Plenty
3-6
of-
on board.
But the B side is just relatively empty.
Yeah, without a wall, that two Bleed just walls their way in. I think they read into the fact that on that eco, South will like to stack up the A site, combined of course with the conditioning that once again Bleed have set up by going to that A site again and again. They get this B site for free. And now with the Hunter's Fury available, it seems like a simple first part.
Yeah, Hunter's Fury is available in case South decides to tap the spike. In case something goes wrong, there's a resurrection as well. But I don't think any of that will be required in this round. The superior weaponry of Bleed should allow them to win all the duels that they need. Darion making first contact. He's not even in range of his rendezvous, but then again, he doesn't need to be. This is just another round where Bleed can farm up their kills and get the crucial ultimates ready, like the Tour de Force and even the Viper Spit for that matter. Pro will give up his life so that he doesn't get the economic penalty. Southbuild will be able to buy in the next round, but Bleed have already taken the lead in this half.
Exactly, 7-3. Bleed are doing better than they did the last time they faced off against Southbuild, and you have to wonder, right? While of course Southbuild on their attacking half will have a better chance with the duelist on that arena as compared to the no duelist lineup that they used to run, Bleed are that much more comfortable on their own defense. So was the gamble worth it? Was the compositional change of value? Because it does seem like Southbuild, they're just not able to find the answers to Bleed, and their comfort on this icebox map. Once again, now having conditioned Southbuild to expect that A hit, Bleed head on towards this B side. And a 4-man stack for Southbuild, not going to pay off. They're trying to come through quick on the rotations, but by the time they're here, Bleed will take this side.
Yes, but they can still deny the plant, and the moment I say that Flippy goes down, that was the one person who could have stopped it. Oh, but look at the position of the planting line. The wall way too deep inside, and instead of planting in the regular spot, they planted a little closer to Snowman. In case something goes wrong, Bleed can defend it from that region as well, but I don't think they will have the opportunity of going to that region, nor the requirement to do so. They've already picked up a multitude of frags before the spike was even planted, and Southbuild are forced to call the save already.
Southbuild with not many options left on the plate. An 8-3 scoreline to be picked up for Bleed as we head into the final round of our first half, and it feels like Bleed are just dominating. Southbuild picked up the challenge, threw the gauntlet at Bleed effectively by picking up that Reyna, and Bleed have responded in a triumphant fashion. They've shut down Southbuild and ever more so, and they're gonna deny yet another weapon and make that do. Southbuild
Last
don't
round
even
in
get
the
the
half.
save.
Yikes. Imagine going into the last round of the half and you've lost the most expensive weapon.
Yeah.
Sure, Southbuild are not completely broke, but that operator could have made a massive difference.
Yeah, and you can see Pro rightfully so calling that timeout, taking that minute to reset his team, especially mentally, and they definitely need that. Not much talking going on except from Zhao. I think just trying to highlight that they are getting played like a fiddle, right? Because we saw this in Haven, Bleed conditioning the heck out of Southbuild. They hit that A site again and again and again in the first half of this first half, just as Southbuild to start stacking it up and Bleed switch it up. Doing exactly the same thing in an icebox. They hit A again and again and again. And when Bleed just have the right read, Crazy Guy just seems to know the lay of the land perfectly, when to switch, that tempo change, that side change coming in, huge.
Exactly. It's almost like he's got that sixth sense. And at least in Haven, the conditioning of A was a little more straightforward. They creep up towards A from long and short with varying degrees and varying paces. This time, Bleed not only hit A multiple times, but also from multiple angles. Sometimes they hit it via pipes and go towards the left of 410. Sometimes they just plant the spike without even fighting, locking the defenders out of the action. Of course, there was this one failed attempt of a mid plus A take as well, but we don't talk about that one.
Well, the timeout for Southfield here. Bleed. You can see they're expecting aggression, but they don't wait long enough. Southfield still try to push on through, and Jaw not able to land with his headhunter. A crucial kill given away, and just like that, Southfield scrambling to try and back up Papichulo. Bleed. They're expecting this man. They're already ready to rotate.
Oh, very aggressive approach towards mid. Southfield want to take the fight to Bleed, and Bleed are happy to give them one. Now Papi Chulo left to his own devices with a mammoth task, a Herculean one rather, to stop Bleed from coming over here. And he's only got a bulldog to play with. The recon will reveal his position, but he says, at least I will take one player down before I fight the dust. And that also doesn't give him anything to work with. Aziz, with the Empress active, now has to become the king of the court. He's looking for his crown, but nothing will be found. Southfield are decimated with a 3-9 deficit.
Switching sides.
And now Southfield, they have one last hope. They're gonna have to turn to the gods, pray to the witches, and hope for a curse. Because that 9-3 scoreline is the only thing they can seem to hope for. Hope for that curse to come online and get them what they need. Because otherwise, Bleed on the defense, man, I have to tell you, they are that much scary. Darion with his hands on an operator just locks down one half of a map entirely, and it makes it so oppressive for attackers to move anywhere. Because on one hand, you either walk into Darion's op, or on the other hand, you walk into a hungry, thirsty Jersey. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. It's Bleed looking to pick up this map and go straight towards the final playoffs. Look at Darion. Did you see that?
Wait, what? What did he do? Was he
He
chilling on
was
his phone?
taking selfies. I don't know if he was
Oh.
chilling on his phone or taking selfies, but it looked like he was taking selfies.
I mean, given the way how he and JH are now smiling, I think he probably must have been sending memes to his friend. But then again,
Yeah,
I
that's
know
likely.
they are also pretty focused enough to not do that. Either way,
Darion
well,
sending the stonks meme, like Bleed stonks going, oh.
okay. I mean, that could be a good one, because Bleed have a lot of good stuff coming up this weekend. They most likely
Right.
will be in the next stage of AMD SEA Championship unless South will do something about it. They've got a tour to India, another tournament to play after that. Bleed have a busy weekend.
Yeah, they most definitely do, Crips.
But for now, Bleed look to finish off this game as quickly as possible. Southfield Esports, they are huddling up outside of B, the drone to go ahead, and the drone spots out two players instantly. What they don't know is Juicy is also present in the region. Now, do Southfield continue going onwards? Juicy is playing a one and done angle of sorts, but since he's a Reina, he can get away with that one and done. Aziz already takes a dink to the head. Now, luckily there's a Sage on his team, so he can get healed, but the moment they fall back, Juicy decides to aggress. The recon would have been a little bit of a disaster. He's so... never mind. He gets a little desperate. Darion, of course, follows up on the back of it, so it's still a 3v3. The trades swing evenly, but Southfield have now so many options. With 2 kills already in their bag towards the B side, they can always go back towards A where there's only one player defending. Instead, they
Scanning
cut off
ahead.
sound and slowly creep forward.
3v3 on this setup now is Bleed. They have an inkling that Southfield heading towards B side, waiting for the plant, and Bleed themselves looking to
enemy remaining.
deny it using that utility. Crazy guy pops a hole in Jaw's head and shocks another with his dart. And it's Scary coming through with the backup to put the nail in the coffin for not just this round, but most likely Southfield's hopes in this tournament. They needed that pistol to be able to have some sort of semblance of hope of a comeback, but without that pistol, I feel like it might just be GGWP, because now Bleed have got their anti-eco, they've got the Guardians, the Phantoms, the better weapons coming online in Southfield. They've got nothing to say and nothing to buy.
Especially with that poison cloud placed just near the area of planting. It's so much more difficult for Southfield to avoid that shock dart because the damage is amplified. You're vulnerable. At least Jar starts off well. He takes down the danger man. With Crazy Guy out of the picture, Plant definitely seems a little easier, but the cavalry has arrived. Bleed Esports have already made the rotations. The wall goes through. The Plant will also not be denied. South will have the advantage in this round, but Bleed still have the superior weaponry.
Yeah, exactly. Despite the fact that it's 4v5 on the retake, the superior weaponry going to come into play and be crucial. But the superior weaponry is actually in the hands of that chamber. The headhunter coming up, huge. But Juicy on the Queen wants to make them pay. Finds a 3k already and equalizes the man advantage. And in that 2v2, commands Darion to
enemy
defuse.
remaining.
But the Queen's got his back. He's found his 4k and will be denied his ace.
That's okay. That's
Come on,
okay.
Darion.
That's
You
completely fine. That's completely fine, CA. But
I know it's fine because it's the round, but ace, like kind of feels bad, but
okay, think of it this way. It would have
They could
been
have
an
lost the
eco
round, but-
ace if it was, the anti-eco ace
Yeah,
doesn't
true.
really count for much. Eco frags. Anyway, Juicy getting that quad kill farms up not only his confidence but also his ultimate. And while the Empress is not the most impactful ultimate of them all, it is certainly scary in the hands of someone like Juicy. Southbuilt Esports finally have mustered up a bye, but they need to thrive in this round if they want to deny Bleed the map and match point.
oh, and look.
Darion can hear
Right.
everyone.
Exactly, they're trying to go in for the aggressive hit, but Darion able to hear everyone. Likely also knows that there's someone left for the lurk, but he is away in the nick of time to not be able to spot out Papi Chulo. But that's alright, because Juicy coming in with that A push takes him out. With that Viper gone away, not much post-plant potential for Southbuilt either, so they're looking for the fights to get the advantage early. But instead, it's just trades all the way.
Oh, at least the trades do swing in the favor when Ja finally strikes, and that's the triple. This was important for him. At
enemy
least this
remaining.
clears up the space for Flippy to
Spike
plant,
down
but he's
B.
planting on top, and Scary sees him from a mile away. All in the hands of Ja, the man who initially made it look possible, now has to make it all his own. He's got plenty of time to work with. The possibilities are endless, but the spike is nearly impossible to recover if he tries to go up on top. He has to now go for the flank, try to surprise them with a kill or two. But Bleed Esports take no chances.
30
They're not
seconds left.
offering him any battles whatsoever. They're waiting for him to step up on top. The moment Ja arrives over here, somebody will peek as soon as he tries to go for the plant. Is he going to plant at the top or at the bottom? He's dropped down. Sound heard. Juicy realizes
Spike
he's
planted.
committing. The Lear comes through. Oh, but he doesn't peek on the back of it. Ja's actually allowed to get away. And that gives him enough points to get the Tour de Force online. An ace. Possible. Poison Cloud blocks his vision. Fake tap. Scary steps into
Oh,
the
the
pit.
flick!
And Ja unable to make it.
Oh, he saw his gun barrel. He saw the hopes of his team in that single shot, but... Man, if the Bleed owner is watching this, he is going to be ecstatic because the Bleed fans know how much Scary has clutched in that familiar situation, in that Viper's toxin. He did it to Bleed one time before in the last year in a 1v2. This time he does it for Bleed in that 1v1,
enemy
denies
remaining.
Ja his ace. But most importantly of all, it's a match and series point for Bleed Esports. The flick coming through, Ja whiffing when he needed to not. Played the entire round oh so well, but when it counts, it just fell apart.
But that's completely fine, right? There's not too much that you can expect of him, especially when the odds are so heavily stacked. The amount of pressure he had on his shoulders is unreal, and the fact that he's able to get away with the plant itself is amazing. No way, not like this. Pro had one of the more expensive weapons that Southbuilt could afford, and with that out of the hands now, it's gonna be even more difficult for Southbuilt to make an impact. Bleed looking to play aggressively. They're peeking under tube, making sure that the crosses are denied. Scary lets them pass, but at least he's passed the information to his teammates. Now Bleed are aware about Southbuilt coming towards the A side, and the rotations are already inbound.
And look at this. Southwell gonna try to execute this site 4v5, but what they don't know is Bleed, like you said, the rotations have already come through and they got a 4-man stack. The Empress Pop is juicy to get the first reset, but Darion, he says, let me hunt them down. Finds another 2 and shuts them down just like that. Bleed 13-3, dominate on this map of Icebox and secure their spot in the final playoffs.
Smiles all around as Bleed have now secured their spot in the winners finals. This ensures that they will be going to Thailand for the next stage of the tournament. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a convincing win. The last time these two teams faced each other on Icebox, Bleed were able to win 13-7. This time they rubbed their victory in.
Exactly. And boy, oh boy, what a thrilling matchup that was. The scoreline, I really don't think does it justice because we saw so many rounds going down to the wire. Could have really gone either way. But once again, Bleach shows why Icebox is their most picked map of this tournament. They're just so damn comfortable on it. They seem to all come alive. They are truly cold, ruthless beings to find themselves comfort on that Hartik and the S12 cold tundra, like you mentioned. And 13-3, that's a statement better than I could have ever seen. Bleed stomped their way through the final playoffs and hope that they'll get made in Thailand because I'm sure they'll want the exact cold revenge.
Exactly. More importantly, it does. I mean, at the start of the game, it seemed like Southwell Esports have an opportunity. Given the way the pistol round went down, Bleed tried to throw a curveball, but Southwell had that intercepted. But after that initial ray of hope, everything went down the drain. Ja was popping off, sure, but Crazy Guy was an even more difficult to deal with monster. That 1v2 clutch coming in on the B side, and then finally shutting down them towards the tube region. He made sure that his team stayed in the lead. A triple kill in this round as well. That caused so much economic damage to Southwell Esports. Even though Southwell won the round, they basically had nothing to work with in the subsequent ones.
Exactly, and at that point, I think for Southbuilt Esports, it really did start slipping away. In this exact round as well, with Juicy getting random fags, you could see the way Bleed able to adapt, right? The conditioning really coming into play, and I think that is one clear indication of Bleed's comfort in terms of map pools, one compared to another, where on Haven and Icebox, there were clear plans. They hit one particular site again and again to condition their opponents into stacking up that area particularly, to then switch it around. We rarely saw that on Ascent, and I think that's something to Bleed to work on for the future. They are so strong when it comes to those conditioning plays, so maybe they can find a way to make that come alive on Ascent as well.
Well, maybe the Ascent weaknesses can be fixed, but Bleed Esports, they've got some time to fix those problems. The next match is still a few days away, and while we reminiscent in these lovely highlight clips, I have to appreciate Ja, because this man was on fire today. An almost ace clutch pulled off by this man to keep the hope alive for his team, but Scary shuts all the hopes down. Whatever glimmer was available, he snuffs it out.
Exactly, and I think at this point, both the teams that we have got for our final playoffs are very much deserving so. Bleed Esports and Made in Thailand making their way through will now await one final matchup in the South Asian, or rather Indian qualifier for this championship to see which team joins them. Because while God Squad have made their way through, there's one more team to go.
Yeah, and those matches are going to be interesting as well. The Indian qualifier will also be starting in just a matter of minutes on this very channel. So make sure you stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
I
Wait,
believe
what?
it's tomorrow actually.
Oh, okay, my bad then. My bad then. I guess you can go off and, just subscribe to the channel and hit that notification icon so that you are reminded when we do go live, unless you want to end up like me and get overexcited about the matchup. I thought it was today. My bad over there. But yes, that matchup is still remaining. One Indian team will join them as well. So that means Made in Thailand, Bleed Esports are already confirmed for the next stage of the tournament. God Squad has already made through. God Squad is basically franchise players, which is basically global esports. I mean, we know the truth over there. But one more team is yet to make their way in.
Yeah, and that will be decided tomorrow. To secure our 4 slots in the playoffs. Before now, let's have a look at our scoreboard and take a look if Darion was finally able to steal an MVP slot away from Juicy. The answer is no, unfortunately, and I feel bad for my lad because he had an amazing series.
Definitely, everyone popped off over here, right?
Yeah,
Juicy on that Reina is just so precise.
six
This
first
man,
bloods, man.
I know, right? That's a ridiculous number of first bloods to have. Darion, of course, he also did an amazing job. He was anchoring so well with that chamber. Of course, Juicy had the more pop-off potential on the attacking side simply because the duelists are built that way. But I'm just surprised that Crazy Guy does not have as many frags as his fellow teammates. Usually, Juicy tries to steal the MVP away from Crazy Guy, not Darion. Crazy Guy is the more, how do I say this, the more clutch player on the team.
Yeah, but there were no opportunities really, except for that one clutch that he found to go for those particular rounds, right? So
Yeah.
Bleed they just stomped it all the way through, and unlike I think Haven even, it really did come down to Bleed. Sorry, unlike Ascent even, it really did come down to once again, just like Haven, Bleed commanding the way this map was played, Bleed ensuring from the very start, from the composition switch for South Build to try and match Bleed's firepower to the firepower, to then the conditioning, to then in the second half, Bleed deciding that if South Build try to move in one way, they're going to push in the other. So in every single way, it felt like it was Bleed's map to lose, and they decide they're not going to lose. They pick up the victory, and just like that we'll be able to move forward. And I will say I must applaud South Build for even taking that risk in such a high stakes environment to try and adapt their composition to fit Bleeds, but you could see just not enough time given for them to be able to do adapt enough to secure the win.
Yeah, and the only adaptation that came through was basically Ja keeping the hope alive for his team.
Yeah,
Everyone else just really suppressed by Bleed Esports and the amount of firepower they have. While Ja had a decent enough KD ratio, none of his teammates were able to step above the KD of 1. Aziz had just one frag in the first 8 rounds. That tells you how much of a failure that was. I can't exactly blame him for this one because Reina on Icebox is not something he's picked up before, and this was an experiment that South Build were going for. So an experiment does come with its risks, and South Build were well versed with those.
exactly. And I think for South Built, at the end of the day, they'll walk away from this map disappointed, of course, that they couldn't make it to the playoffs, but still proud of their performance across this entire tournament, where they really gave a challenge to the likes of Bleed Esports and Made in Thailand, our final playoff qualifying teams. And we'll look to the rest of the off season to keep building on the momentum. Because remember, this is one of the few teams in our off season that has barely made any changes. So for them, it really has come down to placing their trust and faith in this roster and moving forward through the rest of the off season, building up to VCT 2023. And we'll have to see if they can do exactly that, because one thing is for certain, I think they learned a lot from the Skyesports SEA Championship.
And definitely they can put that learning to use in all the other tournaments that they play. Sky Sports has plenty of more surprises coming for you guys,
Oh,
so
yeah.
stay tuned. And I mean, of course, we can't leak everything just yet, but you'll find out about it soon enough.
All you've got to do is head on over to Sky Esports socials and make sure you follow them. And while you do that, you could give us love as well. But either ways, I think the next time we will be seeing you guys is for that India qualifier and then directly on that finals playoffs, which is going to be especially exciting with two Indian teams facing off against South Built and Bleed Esports. Sorry, Made in Thailand and Bleed Esports. And with Made in Thailand sole representing that Thai pride, they're sure to come out all guns blazing and swinging for that championship.
And definitely they will be the hometown heroes in the next stage of the tournament because two Indian teams will fly down to Thailand for this tournament. And of course, where Made in Thailand reside, they will be basically welcoming them into the belly of the beast. Thailand is going to be ignited for this one.
Yeah, it's going to be
So,
an especially exciting playoffs, and I can't wait for it, Crips. But we are gonna have to. Just a reminder to our folks, it's going to be 1 week for now. But what we do have for you is coming up that one last qualifying match, as Crips and I were talking about. It is that Revenant versus Velocity game tomorrow at 5 p.m. But before that, let's have a look at the journey all of these teams took to even reach this final spot. Where it started off, Bleed versus Made in Thailand, with where Made in Thailand were able to pull off a phenomenal comeback to execute a reverse sweep, then went on to 2-0 South Build and secure their spot. Bleed, they had to go the tough way through the losers bracket, beat out Naos, beat out South Build, eradicating the Filipino teams from this tournament to secure their spot.
Oh yeah, now that I notice, South Built and Naos, both hailing from Philippines, fell to Bleed Esports. The only thing that could stop them was made in Thailand. All right, then. It's also kind of sad that Naos and Southfield faced each other right at the start, because that was a Val Clasico of its own. Both the Filipino teams basically facing each other, and they've played each
Yeah.
other so many times before. So that was a super interesting match to watch because it was full of brain games. Later on, Now Esports obviously ended their tournament run a little earlier than Southbuilt, but Bleed Esports, after falling victim to Made in Thailand, will now be facing them again in the final playoffs. And at that time, we will be seeing some good old rivalry come into action.
Oh, most definitely. And one thing is for certain, we found out what Bleed's kryptonite is. How do they bleed? You may wonder. Well, if it the only way to make it happen is if you're made in Thailand. And the Indian teams are going to hope that that Thailand buff comes online for them when they go there, because otherwise, Bleed is going to make short work of anything related to Thailand at this point. They're going to want to exact vengeance on that for that almost humiliating loss, something that Bleed isn't really used to be come back by that parameter. But I think at the end of the day, they'll be content for today, knowing that they have qualified it and leave that fight for another day.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you all had an amazing time, because we certainly did.
Yeah.
This was a match of epic proportions, from both the teams winning out each other's map pick to a stomping victory by Bleed Esports in the final map. Bleed showed us what they are truly made of, and South Build, they put up a valiant fight, but unfortunately were not able to best Bleed later on. Icebox definitely was a map where South Build are not as comfortable as Bleed, so it is natural that they would lose. But I'm so glad that South Build tried out new things. They tried out a new competition. They went out of their comfort zone and they were willing to experiment, and that's what matters the most.
Yeah, if you are believing of the fact that you are at a disadvantage in a particular map, you might as well try out something new and take as much as you can in terms of learning from it. So most definitely a silver lining for South Build from this matchup. And given the fact that that's what the off season is for, to build up your map, they look to do exactly that. But one final reminder for you guys that we've got one more qualification match to go in the India qualifier, which is going to be RNT versus BLT for that last spot on the plane to Thailand. It will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. So make sure you're there and you've got the notifications bell on. But from me and Crips today, as well as this SEA qualifier, that's all it's going to be. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.